And welcome everybody to Globebusters, getting the right angle on flat Earth. I'm your host, Bob, Xanadude60, and we're back with another great show for you today. And hopefully you're going to like this one. We just have all kinds of little tidbits, or as I like to call them, I should say, the preponderances of evidence that I have been collecting, of course, or I guess we have all been collecting over the last 5 years. And I just wanted to kind of, let people know that there is more than just the so-called black swan argument out there. Even though I have to say the black swan is an excellent FE proof, it is far from the only, or in my opinion, far from the best proof that we have. We have lots of wonderful and magnificent proofs. And hopefully we're just going to be talking about some of those today, and even some new ones, some new thoughts that I have. And we'll kind of hear what the panel thinks about it. So before we get to that, let me go ahead and introduce the panel. Hopefully everybody's back. First up, we have Jaron from Jaronism. How you doing today, Jaron?
Doing great, Bob. How about you?
Doing good. It's a whopping 28 degrees and snowing outside in Denver today.
Oh, I can't say I envy you. I don't like that at all, and it's not bad here in California. It's pretty sunny, but I'd say cold, but you would say what my cold is probably warm. I don't know what it is today. Probably 60. I don't know. I'd have to look.
Oh yeah, that's a wonderful day. Well, it's funny because in Colorado and Denver especially, we get such strange weather. Just like last week had a 74-degree day, and then the very next day it dropped down into the teens. So, it's pretty typical for here, but, we also get a lot of sunshine. So that's one nice thing about Colorado. One thing I will definitely miss about Colorado when we leave here. For sure.
It's 60 degrees today, and I'd say I'm cold. I got my sweater on, my beanie on, but it is what it is. I'm looking forward to a good show, and then, it should be fun. After the show, I'm going to a WWE wrestling event. My sister bought me tickets for my birthday. So I'm heading down to Fresno, your old stomping grounds, to check out some men in tights. Should be fun.
Awesome. What is the venue there?
I think it's called Save Mart Center in Fresno. I think that's what it's called. So it should be fun. I think I'm going to go down with my microphone and try and interview some people in the parking lot and I think the question I'm going to ask today is, since people all say wrestling's fake, I'm going to start asking wrestling fans whether they think the moon landing was fake. So that's kind of my play on it today. So it should be fun.
Wonder how many other people are you going to get? Well, I just don't have time for that kind of stuff.
I don't know. I don't know. Wrestling fans are cool. They'll definitely be down to have a conversation. So should be interesting. We'll see.
Yeah, that's cool. Awesome. Alrighty then. Okay, so next up, we're kind of a short crew today, but Iru is traveling back from Switzerland to Argentina. I am not sure where Rodrigo is, and so he may or may not pop in. Ben is at the park with his family. They are headed back to the house, and then he'll be joining us here probably in the next 20 minutes or so. But until then, we do have Mr. Austin. Let me try that again. Mr. Austin Whitsitt with us from Whitsitt Gets It. And how are you doing today, Austin?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Doing fabulous. So I have many people been telling me that you have just been tearing up Discord lately.
Yeah, I'm new to Discord for a couple of days now, and it's been pretty awesome. A lot of people coming together and just sharing some serious mind gravy. So yeah, I've been on there a lot lately.
Yeah, I really like it too. Discord is. I went through my period this summer when I was on there almost every single day. I was really enjoying getting on there, but boy, I'll tell you, some of the Glober arguments. I can only do that for so long before I want to, rip my hair out.
Hey, Bob, not sure you guys hear the storm in the background. Has kind of a windstorm going on here. How are you guys doing?
Oh, good, Rodrigo. Glad you finally made it. Is it a windstorm or is that it?
Yeah, it's like some crazy windstorm. They gave it a name, because it's a strong one, supposedly. But my house is being shaking. Can you hear it?
Oh my God, I can hear it.
It's just gusts of wind shaking the house, essentially.
Earth started spinning. Watch out.
Yeah, the earth started spinning. Yeah. All of a sudden, they turn on I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's pretty intense, but it's all right. It's all good.
I hear you. Okay, yeah. Cool. So, I need to change something really quick here on my screen sharing for you guys. There we go. All right, now I think I have my stuff together. All right, guys. So today I have a few things that I wanted to talk about, but before we get to the main gravy plates, there's a couple things that I want to show. Of course, what we're showing right now is the newest JTolan Media One video, which again is another really, really fabulous infrared thing that he has done. And, I really love his work because he is so meticulous. And I don't think a lot of people really know how smart this guy actually is. He is a very, very highly credentialed electrical engineer who does a lot of work for, let's just say, some highly placed agencies. And, it amazes me that he gets away with being a flat earther, but he definitely is. And he brings, a whole nother level of science, I think, to it. I think it's beautiful. He recently, in this, he's talking about he's going to be making a presentation here in the very near future where he's doing, some, really high level math and really, he says, I want to take it to the next level. So when I heard that, I contacted him because he and I are friends on Facebook. And I wrote him a really long message on Messenger and was telling him about, all the stuff that we're doing in FE Core and that I had seen his new toys that he got for Christmas. He got a bunch of new surveying equipment for Christmas. And I told him, I go, we really like it when you come on our show. Of course, JTolan has been on Jaron's show before, and he's been on Globebusters before. His very first video, I saw that and immediately wanted to have him on because, it's just really spectacular what he does. And so he was kind enough to write back a really long response. And he was kind of filling me in on some of the details that he is going to be going over, which are going to be really fantastic. And like I said, this guy really knows what he's doing. He's very highly credentialed, super smart guy. And he is going to be nice enough to come on our shows, Jaron. I don't know if it'll be both of our shows or just Globebusters, but in any event, he's going to come on and maybe do a little bit of those presentations with us. And I think that's going to be awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, I was hoping to contact him and ask him when he was ready to present that I would love to have him on again. I thought it was a great interview last time, and he's doing great work and showing that we see way too far over and over and over again, like we've been saying for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
I have a question about this. Like, he just put a filter on his camera here. That's not what you guys been doing when you do the conversion, right? That's more serious kind of operation on the camera.
Oh yeah, his setup is thousands of dollars.
Oh, okay. So he
P900 or P1000 even converted is not even close to what he's using.
Okay.
Yeah,
so this makes a big difference. You can tell. Yeah, Bob, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. He uses like the Sony, like A7 or whatever the high end Sony cameras are, and gets them converted. Either that or they have that mode in them. I'm not sure exactly what he said, but of course, then you can take on and off the filter. You see him in these videos where he's actually putting on infrared filters, and he also does it in multiple different infrared wavelengths. So, but yeah, he goes much higher than the typical P900 resolution. And what's the max pixels of the P1000 and 900? I'm drawing a blank off the top of my head.
I want to say it's 18.
Is it that high? I didn't think it was that high, but maybe.
Maybe 16 to 18.
Yeah.
What is just so trippy about this one video that you're just showing now, Bob, that right now at this moment, and back a little bit more, when he zoomed in, you could imagine that you're at the beach and looking at that from the zoom position. It looks like almost it's from the ground. It's crazy just how flat it is, because that ocean is just stretching to the horizon there, to the eye level. But I just had an impression when he zoomed in really hard that you could imagine that he was not even on a plane, that it was taken from the ground.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's interesting you mentioned that, because it was because of this clarity and what we're seeing, above it, the clouds and stuff like that, that kind of made me, I wouldn't say have an epiphany, but it's something that I really wanted to elaborate on. I have spoken about it before on Globebusters, but I think it's one of those things that it's one of those so-called quote unquote black swans that's been right in front of our face the whole time. And, to me, it's all in how you look at it. You just got to get the right angle on how you look at it. And that's, it was because of this Jay Tolan video that I named the show what I did. And I'll elaborate on that a little bit more in a little bit. But yeah, it's absolutely incredible. And what's great about it is he's got all these different reference points that you can pick out. He always shows the instrumentation that they make available on the plane, and it's just awesome.
Mm-hmm. The mountains, you mean the mountain peaks and the distances and the heights and all that stuff that he puts on the maps. Like, he does a really good job at that.
Yeah, he
right,
does.
in these photographs, yeah, it's incredible. Right? And he hasn't. You said that he works for some pretty serious projects.
Yes, he does.
As professional.
Yeah, he does.
Right.
And that's why he travels all the time. Because
right.
he does some very high level engineering, and he specializes in what I used to specialize in radar. So he's very much into electronics and communications. And of course, I only did radar while I was in the Air Force, and that was a long time ago. And from there, I kind of branched out into communications, cellular, microwave satellite, IMTS, yada, yada, yada. I mean, pretty much all kinds of different fields in communication, but he's pretty much stuck with a lot of the radar, and he's very, very knowledgeable, smart guy. So
yeah, this is just incredible. I think he's breaking ground with his. There's people now that try to do very similar things because it's, I think, inspired by what he does, the infrared.
Yeah. Well, in fact, it was because of him that everybody started getting their cameras converted. Jaron and I wound up swapping cameras. Jaron had a new P1000, and he and I traded. I traded him my P900 and some filters and stuff like that. I think I definitely got the better end of the deal, and thank you for that, Jaron. But
That's right.
Jaron wanted to have an infrared camera. It's something that was convertible, and interestingly enough, it's really difficult to get the P1000s converted. And as far as I know, there's only one place that does it, and that's in Germany somewhere. But apparently, it's very difficult. So,
Yeah,
there you have
just send it out to Germany, or at least, I don't know. I heard a couple people saying you could send it to Nikon, but I've also heard you can't. So just depends.
At some point, they're probably going to make a model that already comes with it because they realize there's a demand for it. You know?
Yeah, well, yeah. Somebody said that they made the P950, which I was not aware of until the Friday Lounge that we just talked about on Friday, that they had even come out with it. And somebody said that Nikon actually made some sort of comment about it being to appease flat earthers. And, I don't know what that was, but I'd love to hear it.
Maybe if it does have, one of the things that's really nice about iPhones or whatever, that they use different cameras to kind of do the stabilization thing that it does. I don't know what it does with several frames. Like, you never take a picture that is out of focus or, smudge. And if they do that, that's one of the problems that it seems to have, because all you guys been saying, talking about the 1000, when you zoom in really, really hard, any breeze, anything makes the thing tremble. So that's something to work on.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe inside stabilization system or something that does it, some gyroscope.
Yeah. And for some reason, the 12 megapixel figure sticks in my head. I may be wrong, but I thought that, with that much more zoom, that it would have been beneficial to go up to something like 20 megapixels, right. With that much more, to have that much more resolution, so you could get more of a digital type of zoom on it. That would have been kind of handy, but you're right. You have to have a really fabulous telescope for them. Otherwise, it's just like you're all over the place with them. And the 900 is bad enough, and the 1000's even worse. So there you have it.
I just sent you a link, Bob, to an article that was on F-Stoppers a while ago that includes the flat Earth little map and dome in there, and it's from F-Stoppers. Nikon is just a Coolpix 950, a compact zoomy camera to make flat earthers go crazy.
That's great.
Bob, you're not calling me right now, are you? I'm getting a phone call from a 720 number in Denver.
Nope, I am not. My numbers are all 303.
Good, I'm not answering.
Okay, yeah, I have no idea who it would be, but 720 is definitely Denver.
All right, leave a message, whoever that was.
Yep.
It's interesting how they totally embrace the flat Earth thing here.
Yeah, they've done it before too. There was another article from the same. I wonder if I can find it from the same people. F-Stop. Oh yeah, here it is from January 1st. Nikon cameras prove the Earth is flat. I'll send you this article too. I don't know if you're bringing those up on screen for. Oh, you are. Good.
Yeah, I am.
Here's the other one. So there's that one as well.
Okay. Let me see. Whoopsie. Let me open that. There we go. Oh my God. Yeah, Nathan Thompson on there. That's awesome. Prove the Earth is flat. That's great. I'll have to read that later, but that sounds like could be a fun article, or are they just bashing us?
No, they're bashing, but I am seeing this. If you've explored the dark corners of the internet, specifically YouTube, you'll find some pretty interesting claims and theories. One is very popular about how the Earth is flat. This is crazy, right? I mean, how can anyone believe the Earth is flat? Well, Nikon has the gear to help us prove this obvious fact with their P900, P1000.
That's funny. It's like, prove it is flat. No,
yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, they make fun of it, but it's the truth. And my God, I can only imagine how many thousands of, hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, the flat earthers have brought Nikon because of that camera, those cameras.
Yeah. Right, exactly. They're probably going to capitalize on that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I wonder if they have sales figures for this. We can actually know, how it sells compared to other cameras.
Well, it's a great camera. I mean, it's if you don't want a DSLR, it's probably the best thing that's not a DSLR, I guess.
Right. The closest to it you can get, but with better zoom, because to buy a zoom like that for DSLR, like it's gonna be thousands. Just the telelens, it's I don't know. Some of them are multiple $7,000-$10,000, whatever. It's nuts.
Yeah, but it's a great camera, especially for going out, doing observations at the beach and watching boats. Like I said, we need to get some people to go out and actually get the distances that we're seeing these boats, because I guarantee you we're seeing the boats way too far.
Right.
And
Right.
this is the problem: is that back, 100 years ago, people were looking out at the water and seeing boats disappear, and they thought that meant that they were going over the curve. But when you're able to just pull it back and zoom in, and there's a boat, surprise, it's not what you were taught.
Yeah. And I mean, you can get to approach a skipper somewhere and, ask for it. So one day when they're off, they have to go out anyway. You just call them on the phone or online and say, how far are you from the coast? And I'm seeing you or not seeing him, and that's it.
Yeah, I contacted 2 boat companies, and one tried to charge me $400 and the other one $500.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry, never mind.
Doesn't Joe Mama have a boat though? I don't know how big it is or anything like that, but
No, Dave has one too. So he said he's going to do it, but he's on the other coast, so
yeah,
on the least coast, as I call it.
the least coast. And Joe Mama is definitely closer to your neighborhood. I don't know exactly where he is, but I know he's much closer than Dave is. So
Much closer.
much closer.
Anyway, Nikon, proving the Earth is flat amongst many other camera types, but I think the one that Jay Tolan uses is a Sony, and then he's got all kinds of equipment, like you said, different lenses. He can change the different wavelengths, and so it's definitely far beyond what P1000 can do.
And Bob, was there anything important about that observation at that point that you're showing? Because it's so clear, the flat horizon, everything. What's the distance there? Did he find out what's the limit of the horizon there?
Well, it's a minimum of 250 miles minimum. And the reason that I stuck it on that particular frame, we'll be coming back to that, is because this is where I'm going to kind of point something out to you guys and the community in general, that some people might think is a black swan, but it's just another, as Taboo says, just another everyday swan. One of the amazing proofs that we've been able to see for a long time. And so we'll get to that here shortly.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, so the first thing I want to cover, and I don't know who posted this in the Globebusters chat this morning, whether it was Dave or you, Rodrigo, but whatever.
It was Iro.
Was it Iro? Oh, okay. But, oh my God. Did you watch this? Did you guys watch this?
I haven't watched yet.
Oh, well, we're going to watch it then.
Not yet. I don't. Sometimes I don't want to watch these things because it gets me kind of moving, and then I want to do something and I can't. So it's good to watch it.
Well, if it has the same effect on you, I mean, the only thing I could think about doing while I was watching it was going. I mean,
when did this? Oh, yesterday.
Yeah. So he comes out, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I don't debate people because it's silly." Well, I'll let him tell it. Let's just go ahead and let Mr. deGrasse Tyson, spew his BS, and then we'll laugh at him afterwards. Okay? How's that sound? All right, here we go, guys.
Sounds good.
I don't like debating people. Because in a debate, what is the construct? It's typically 2 people, and there's an audience, and you debate some opposite sides of some issue, and then there's a winner of the debate. And then everyone walks away reflecting on the winner. So who wins a debate? It's often the person who's charismatic, who's maybe charming, that's related to charisma, of course.
And of course, isn't that Neil's job, right? To be charismatic and charming, right? And
that's his only job. He's a science popularizer. I mean, go look up how many papers the guy's written. I think to get a PhD, don't you have to write one?
In my case, I have to write a really big one. And a bunch of other ones before that, like a bunch of stuff. But in the science, it's a little bit easier. Like I think I described this before. It's like you do. Huh?
I think he's published one paper.
Right. Yeah, he has some things, a bunch of these books. Who knows if it's ghostwritten? It's basically all propaganda. He has some paper that Council on Foreign Relations paper arguing that why you should give money to NASA and stuff. and all the other kind of myth BS that we have. Of course, he's not going to debate anybody because they're going to say, hey, what about your sexual assault charges and rape charges? How do you deal with that? And, things like that you may bring up. Of course, he's not going to risk that. And astrophysicists, we see what happens if an astrophysicist meets a flat earther wakey. So he must be, literally shitting his pants. I mean, he has some excuse now.
Exactly. And, in all honesty, even if a flat earther was debating him, I would call that a lowbrow tactic, to, be debating the shape of the earth and say, whoa, what about your sexual assault charges? Like, really?
Right, of course.
I mean, that to me would just be a shit tactic, honestly. And I don't think anybody should ever do anything like that. But, this is what he does.
But you see what's happening to Joe Biden, right? Because so many people see him creep onto children and stuff that now when he goes live, people are screaming at him. So, I wouldn't, all I'm saying is that, of course, it could happen in this case because people are probably pissed off that he's never responded to it. And that would be the only way they would get him to, because they have done that to him. And that's not been out, but one of the women that called him out actually did it in public during one of his presentations, but that's never been put out. That was hush hush. So
right. Well, and I get that. I'm just saying that in a debate environment, it's really
off the point.
Yeah, exactly. And I would consider it a lowbrow tactic. I mean, you're literally trying to discredit your opponent, whether it is true or not. But it's being used as a tactic to discredit your opponent. To try and boost the argument in your favor. So I just think it's cheesy, even though it is. Even if it's true.
Yeah. Yeah, but it is one of the things, like if the whole thing is poison, it's kind of like when you look at Jack Parsons and the whole thing, the whole connections, the whole thing is poison, right? And you're asked to trust him later on at the other day. So, yeah, I see what you mean, but also, it's better if you don't have somebody. It would look better for them if they didn't have so much of these other problems that put their morality in question. You know what I mean? But yeah, I know what you mean. It's totally off topic, but it's something that somebody might bring up, and you. That's why astronauts they don't want astronauts talking to just anybody. They want them talking to children with scripted questions, because somebody might pull out a bubbles in space question.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Mark Sargent interviewed or was on that show with that one astronaut. He wasn't allowed to directly talk to him. Remember that?
Right. Right.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And honestly, I mean, I don't debate people because, especially the ball earthers, because to me it's pointless. There's absolutely no reason to do it whatsoever. And I do understand that people that do it, like, Austin, for example, he's doing it in his mindset, and correct me if I'm wrong, Austin, but, your mindset in doing this is to allow the audience to see, how the other side is responding,
Yeah, exactly. To show how, like, unfounded the popular arguments really are.
Yeah. And I get that, and so I've never really, even though I'm actually really good at debating people, I've never really wanted anything to do with any of these ballers, but I would, and I am far from well-spoken and, anything like that, but I would debate Neil deGrasse Tyson in a heartbeat, and I absolutely would. I would love to, in fact. And he is certainly more eloquently spoken than I am, and, he just seems to think that we got no facts. But let's continue watching on, and you can hear the rest of this. Oh, go ahead.
I know it's totally off subject, but just talking about their nonsense claims, I wanted to ask Austin something. Austin, the other day I was reading, I love to read these Quora questions, because I think sometimes when you see these guys who answer, these astrophysicists or these physicists, when they describe how their whole space model works, it's just hilarious. And somebody asked, is there a spot in the sky where I can point and say that's where the Big Bang was? And I was like, oh, that's an interesting question. I've never really thought about that. But, they say it was a hot, dense point. And so if it happens somewhere and everything's expanding from that point, I was like, well, yeah, shouldn't there be a spot in the sky that we can point to and say that's where well, the answer is that no, there's not. The Big Bang is a point in time, not a place, because it expanded and happened everywhere. And I was like, that is ridiculous. It's
it made space, right?
Oh, and since if you think about the balloon, and you place each little planet on, or star on the balloon, and it expands everywhere. The Big Bang happened in an instant in time and everywhere, and expanded from there. I mean, it's so stupid. I mean, imagine what that's saying. It's just, it's ridiculous. I was wondering if Austin had ever heard that nonsense.
No, I haven't, but that sounds retarded.
Well, and when you think about it, what was the whole purpose of the cosmic background microwave radiation test, right? Where are those results leading us? Well, they're saying that we're right in the center of it, so that would kind of infer that the Big Bang happened right here in River City, right?
Right, exactly. That's the thing that I always talk about Edwin Hubble and all these guys that are afraid to admit that if everything's moving away from us, then we're the center. They've just turned that and said, no, you're on a balloon, and if you kind of picture all those dots being in one spot in the balloon, and then you start blowing it up, and from there everything expands, it's just hilarious. So it happened everywhere.
That one they tried to say also that's why, because you're in the surface of a balloon, that's why you cannot tell that things are moving, because you cannot detect the motions they claim. But then they also claim that Andromeda Galaxy is coming at I don't know what rate, but it's going to reach us in 50 million years. So that one's coming towards us, they say. So it's...
Which that doesn't make any sense in their model either.
I guess not.
Much
also,
does.
No.
In astronomy in college, they said that when the two galaxies meet, that no planet or anything is going to touch anything else, because the space between things is so vast that. And then they show this model, computer model, that shows the two galaxies mixing, and how they're going to just mix, and nothing is going to hit anything.
Yeah, that's when you're going to have massive cases of repulsive gravity, right? It's like that is so counterintuitive to mass attracting mass type BS. It's like, oh my god,
it's nuts. Imagine the poles.
Hey,
I mean, yeah. Ben's here.
Oops.
Hey,
Hey,
Darren,
Ben.
going back to your, how's everybody? Hey, getting back to your question, do they, like, for instance, could I say, do they have a claim of where I could point in the sky and say we're headed that way? Or is that impossible to them too?
Well, I would think according to their model, no, you couldn't say that, because if everything's expanding, then everything's moving away, and no matter which planet you were on, no matter what sun you were on, everything would be moving away from you. But then I've also heard the claim that Rodrigo's talking about, where, this galaxy will hit this galaxy. Well, that doesn't make any sense. If you put a bunch of dots on a balloon and you start blowing it up, I hate to tell you, but those dots will never touch each other. So they'll just continue to expand away from each other. So I've heard both, and this is kind of the way it always works when you look into this stuff is
several stories at the same time.
Yeah, you just get to the point where you're like, this is just nonsense, or you simply sit back and say, I believe these guys are the prophets of past time.
Yeah, that's right.
Fall to their feet and say, wow, you guys are so intelligent because you can rewind the sky clock. And I just thought it was an interesting question. Well, can you point to the sky where the Big Bang is? And they're like, well, no, because it happened everywhere. And I'm like, what do you mean? So stupid.
Yeah.
But this is what they need. And you know what happens? That's what happens when you have mathematics. Because guess what? Mathematics can rewind things to zero. And it's just like I've talked about before, where they try to explain a number line where there's nothing before the zero. They say, you have to think of it as an XY axis, but there's nothing in the negative and there's nothing, to the right, basically. It's just like a one side of the graph that kind of moves that way. And they say, and you can't ever talk about what's before the zero. In their math, there is nothing before the zero when you're talking about space, but they can rewind the time to the zero. So.
Yeah, and they reify infinities too. I mean, that's where math goes off into la la land. So
yeah, that's right.
But anyway, okay. So all right, so let's continue on with this and hear out the rest of his BS. Here we go.
Who has a good way with words, good vocabulary, and you can have someone who doesn't have any of that, who is speaking objective truths, who could lose a debate. So then what is the point of the debate if one of these points of view is objectively true? So I will not enter a debate where I have the objectively true side of an argument and the other person does not.
But he always has
the
objective
position to
truth.
be in. That's the position you want to be in. The reason
Exactly.
I don't like getting in debates is because when one side has the entire body of science behind them, then it's very easy for them just to say, oh, well, according this is science, and according to this is proven. And when you're in the other position, you're like, well, I'm saying that this isn't proven, and they can just laugh at you and say, well, it is proven. It's science. It's what we've discovered. And how are we having this conversation over the internet? And how are you using your cell phone? And how are you using your computer if science isn't real? So if I was in the opposite position, I've talked about how easy it would be. It should be so easy for Neil deGrasse to be in a debate. He's saying, I don't want to be in the debate because I'm already on the objectively right side. Well, that's a great position to take.
Right. And he... Oh, go ahead, Rodrigo.
No. He's obviously just afraid of... Is this directed to flat earthers? Because already been... a good part of the video, he hasn't mentioned. He's saying that he's afraid to debate people who are eloquent and have a way of words because they might just make the objective truth, hide it somehow. He's not eloquent enough or whatever. But he's not talking about any proofs or anything in particular. People are going to throw observations at him that he's not going to be able to explain about the sun, the moon, and everything. So
yeah. And the guy's got to know he is the NASA go-to guy spokesperson. He is the astrophysicist spokesperson. He hosts all these debates. I mean, if he doesn't understand that the reason he's in that position is because he is so eloquent and well-spoken, then he is truly an idiot. He's just making up a bunch of nonsense here.
And he's got to have an answer because people like Joe Rogan have already asked him, hey, come on my show and I'll have Eric Dubay on and you guys can talk it out. And Neil deGrasse has declined. So he has to have a reason why I declined. So he has to tell Joe Rogan something so Joe Rogan doesn't start thinking, well, I want this guy to debate a flat earther. So here's the answer. Well, I'm on the side of truth. Why would I ever debate against somebody who's on the side of not...
He is well spoken and he supposedly has the objective truth. What are you afraid of, Mr. PhD deGrasse Tyson?
That's
so
the easiest
ridiculous.
position to be in. It's so
my
ridiculous.
God. I would kill to be in that position, I could do it in my sleep. Anyway, let's continue.
Yeah. If it's so easy, why does he just smacks everything out, made everything go away, which is what we expected. Everyone expected, I guess, at least Mark Sargent, when he talks about it as well, that he expected science to just turn around and, just send it to the other galaxies. But it didn't. And you see, like the wakey thing, if you get an astrophysicist to talk to a flat earther, the things are gonna... they're gonna just start showing more and more stuff, and it's a mess. It's like we saw. That's why I recommended to the Swedish anthropologist that I talked to today to really look into that video and see how astrophysicists explain themselves, how much they really know. And
all right, let's continue.
That is something that should not be debated. Does not belong in front of an audience getting debated. You want to debate something? Debate political policy of what to do in the face of climate change. Do you have carbon tax? Do you solar panels? Do you subsidize them? Debate that. Don't debate something that is or is not objectively true in this world. The B.O.B., the rapper, I have a video letter to him, the transcript of which is in Letters from an Astrophysicist. That rose to that level of attention because he started saying, I am using laws of math and physics to show Earth is flat. Those are fighting words. You can say using math and physics? That is an alarm to the geekiverse that we must rise up and counteract these forces from the dark side that are out there.
Oh my goodness.
So
Look
the
at
bat
this.
signal went up. I responded. What is the bat signal? Oh, sorry. In my Twitter stream, there were people saying, Neil, you got to do something about B.O.B. Save him from himself. He's saying Earth is flat. Then I first said, who's B.O.B.? So I quickly looked at him. Oh, it's a rap star. Okay. These are people who follow me and B.O.B. in the Twitterverse. So what does that Venn diagram look like? How much overlap is there in the two Venn diagrams? In this slice, however narrow, they were pleading to me to do something. And so I responded with a video letter, just kind of putting him in his place.
Yeah, right.
I think it's important to combat people who are claiming that they are using math, science, evidence, and physics behind their cause, when in fact they either aren't or they're using it badly. That needs to be called out.
As if he
you
makes
just have
any
a belief
experiments,
system,
this
I
guy.
don't really care.
He's so brash.
We live in a country that protects free speech, which usually also means free thought. You want to think Earth is flat? go right ahead.
Thanks, Neil.
But if you start influencing other people who have power over other people, and you have no foundation in objective reality, it can be dangerous. If you influence people, or you yourself become someone who has influence over legislation, laws, rules by which we all abide in society, that's an unhealthy situation for civilization to be in. If your personal belief system, which does not have correspondence in objective reality, starts becoming predominant in the thoughts and hearts and minds of civilization.
Neil,
It's calling flat earthers terrorists. I mean,
exactly,
that's
Ben.
frightening. It's frightening where this is
Exactly.
headed.
And isn't it ironic? I mean, he's saying that it has no place in objective reality, or it's like, come on, the Earth is obviously and observably flat. We have the objective, we have the subjective proof, we have everything, and we're not in any position. But you're right, Ben. That's exactly where they're going with that. Well, that's dangerous, and that's dangerous. So what they're going to start doing now is they're going to protect the people by enacting laws against these crazy flat earthers, right?
I tell you, we got to keep hitting them hard. Just don't stop. Just keep hitting them with proofs. Just more and more people need to open their eyes, just so that when they do enact that legislation, there'll be an uprising. That's all we can hope for.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
The irony of this is that our stance in entirety is objective reality.
Yes, that
That's
is
right.
exactly the irony.
That's right. It's like just so upside down what he's trying to do here. He's promoting prejudice and actually hatred and fear of these boogeyman flat earthers, just like National Geographic. So the same payroll.
Hmm. And they have to lie and obfuscate and do all of this stuff. And I'm still waiting for this, the big terror event that's going to be blamed on a flat earther. Because of somebody, well, he disagreed with the ball earther or something like. I don't know what they're going to make it up to be, but it's almost a foregone conclusion that something like that is probably going to happen, right? So,
Wow. And he'd never, as we know, wouldn't touch a single point or a single observation or try to debunk that, right? That he doesn't do. He just talks his mumbo jumbo about objective reality and how he has it. Nobody else who disagrees with him. Nobody has a right to disagree with him, otherwise they're on the wrong side of truth. Whatever. That's just
it's patently absurd. I mean, it is so ironic. It really is, because it is exactly the opposite. He's doing what all the Globers do, what the satanic agenda does. They turn it backwards, inside out, upside down. When we come out with a perfect proof, like the so-called black swan. Oh, thanks for proving the ball Earth, right? Everything. they just turn backwards like it actually means something. And unfortunately, you have a bunch of pre-programmed idiots that they don't have a clue what's being said there. But because the ball earther has said this with such conviction, like, ha ha ha, you guys are killing me, you absolutely proved the ball earth, because that conviction is there, and these people that don't know any better, they're going to go, yeah, rah rah, go team, go, right? It's sad.
It's funny because they think that by cheering on without making any explanation, any actual argument, they have a convincing argument. Like, it's really strange what happens with some of these people. That, like what you're saying, it's kind of some ganging up on repeating some slogan or something while they never even looked the information. It's weird, but yeah, I don't know how we stop this. This is the thing. I guess just like Austin said, just keep on hitting it. Let them, they're throwing the balls, and you keep on batting them as far as they go, around the ball or and back, like Newton had it.
Yep.
But yeah,
exactly. So anyway, that is the presentation from Neil deGrasse Tyson about how he's too much of a chicken and lies about everything, to go up against even the worst spoken flat earther, whoever that would be. I'll throw myself in that role, whatever. I'd debate him in a heartbeat, and I would love to do it. But we all know that that's never going to happen, because heaven forbid, you get somebody you wouldn't ever want to go up against somebody who is not very well spoken and is not on the winning side of the argument, right? What a bunch of silliness.
Well, and something telling the world is objectively true forever and ever, the last thing you want is somebody to come out and prove that it's not, because then the whole system crumbles.
That's boy, right. In a big hurry. All right, cool. All right, so let's move on. Let's leave Mr. deGrasse Tyson in the dust. And let's move on to this next clip. And this was beautiful. And I'm actually going to play just a minute or two of this. But what this is David went to, I'm guessing that this is a retirement home or something like this. I don't know the exact details, but
I think he visited his mom there, and then he asked for the most lucid oldest person and got to this lady. Yeah.
Yep, and got to this lady who is Ruth. And Ruth is, very lovely lady, obviously. I mean, it really is kind of a tearjerker, but it's great. So Ruth is one of those people that, are obviously very rare. We don't have very many 100-year-olds or even 90-year-olds really that can recall and go back and say, well, this is how it was, back 80 years ago or so. But essentially what Ruth reveals is that, when she was in school, they were still teaching that the earth was flat. Well, that's really no surprise to us because we've seen several videos and clips. In fact, I've even got a couple of clips that David dropped in the chat. But it's not like the idea of the ball earth has been around for thousands of years. That is preposterous. And that's just another mainstream lie that they're coming out with. They were absolutely teaching, at the turn of the century that the earth was still flat. And the idea that it could have been a ball was just as dumb to them as it is to us today. Us flat earthers, I should say. I guess I should clarify that. And, that teaching the opposite, or that it was a ball, was considered, heresy, right? I mean, it was absolutely not an accepted thing. It was not something that was known for thousands of years. It hasn't even been known for 100 years. And we have the media. We have, certain people like Rose that are not Rose, but Ruth, that are able to back this up from direct experience and recollection. And I think this is great. So I'm going to play a minute or two of this, and then I would suggest everybody either go over to Taboo Conspiracies channel, who Ben mirrored it, or DITRH, or I think it's also on the Flat Earth Sun Moon Zodiac app page also. But let's go ahead and play a couple minutes of this and listen to this wonderful lady. Here we go. Oops.
Name?
Ruth Heath.
Ruth, and how old are you today?
102.
102. So you were born in
1918.
1918. And we were just talking, and I asked you what shape the Earth is, and what did you say? What were you taught in school in elementary school?
I was taught in school that the Earth was flat.
And then what do you remember when they changed it to a globe?
Well, when they changed it, I remember when they changed it, but I can't remember the date or anything like that.
And did you believe them?
Yes, I did.
You did. Now,
I was young.
Right, and we all were told by people that we trust.
That's right.
Where did you go to school? Elementary school.
I went to Spur Glen School in Hamden, Connecticut. I lived on a farm and grew up with all kinds of animals. No electricity. A big white farmhouse.
Amazing.
And we had to walk to school. We didn't have a bus to take us to school. We had to walk to school and walk home through all bad weather. It was, living on the farm was a life of, I can't explain it.
So getting back to the flat Earth, you said that you're religious, that
yes.
you follow the Bible.
Yes, I do.
And are you aware that the Bible is all about the flat Earth? That God put the Earth on the footstool and separated the waters from the waters? and created the firmament. If you read Genesis, I'm not the Bible guy. I have friends that are so good at it, but there's over 200 verses in the Bible that refer to a flat earth.
That's right.
And I think there's only one verse that mentions earth as a circle, but just like this table right here, that table is a circle,
Right.
but it's flat.
That's right.
Right. A circle is different than a sphere. A sphere is the same in every direction.
That's right.
The circle of the earth. So how does it make you feel to realize that you were right as a kid?
It makes me feel better.
It does make you feel better, right?
Oh, it makes me feel alive.
Oh my God, that is so true. My whole life, I believe,
Yes.
what I was taught.
That's
and then
right.
when I discovered the flat earth,
I feel better about it.
because we are the center of creation.
That's right.
We are important.
That's right.
We are here.
We are God's children.
Excellent.
All right. So it gets to the point where she really gets quite moved emotionally about this discussion. And David, you did such a wonderful job with Ruth. I just got to give you nothing but kudos for this. This was so awesome, very touching. And what did you guys think about it?
I just wanted to say, that video today just it made me feel so good about life and everything. I've been rather depressed, and I don't know, that one just gave me a huge uplift. But the implication of what she's saying there, that the idea that our children were taught that back in 1918, 1920, shortly after World War I, that the earth was flat, that's huge. I mean, the idea that they just changed this on us, I mean, we're seeing that happen right now, where they're changing it from Columbus discovered the earth was flat to now we're seeing that, thousands of years they've known that that the earth is a sphere. We're seeing that change in history right now. And it's just fascinating to see, was it on Friday, Jaron mentioned about the fact that, how come Christopher Columbus he thought that he discovered India if they knew the diameter of the earth. I mean, just that little fact by itself says that there's no way that happened the way they're telling us. And I just think it's so amazing, this idea that maybe they did go through shortly after World War II and removed all the old history books that proved this. Who knows?
It would have been quite easy. It was easy for them to change things today. So just think of how easy it would be in 1900. I mean, there just wasn't nearly as many schools and everything else that you would have had to, change all it would take is one generation. One generation, you could change the minds of everyone. And I think what Ruth is saying is showing that. And you're absolutely right, Ben, about Columbus. It's like now the stupid thing that they have to say is they have to blame some writer and say, oh no, this writer is responsible for saying that Columbus thought the earth was flat. Even though that's how we were all taught. Of course, they're trying to change that now. And if you asked a child now, they would probably be taught the new version of the story, but it simply doesn't make sense. And now their new version is, oh, he read Aristophanes' work, but didn't believe it and thought that the earth was much, much smaller. Well, I mean, if you thought you hit India by just going across the Atlantic Ocean, then you literally thought the earth was a third of the size. It doesn't make any sense. It's ridiculous. And the fact that there's no globe until 1492, that tells me all I need to know. There's just so many lies that go with that whole story, and you can tell. I mean, the whole fact that he never stepped foot in America and yet is propagated here in schools, and we've got a Columbus Day, for heaven's sake, and look at all the atrocities that he's responsible for. It's sickening.
Yep, absolutely. So one of the things that David also sent over, and this is not uncommon. Somebody did a video, had a whole bunch of newspaper clips right around the turn of the century. But this one in particular is from the Cook County Herald in Grand Marais, Minnesota, Saturday, April 21st, 1900, right? So let's get a little close-up on this column and read what it reads. So if we look at it, it says, it's a sad condition of affairs in England. Sir John Gorst accused of intention to teach false precepts. City of Portsmouth excited. It is painful to read that Sir John Gorse, the head of the British Educational Department, right, is in serious trouble and has been threatened by Mr. Ebenezer Breach and other taxpayers of the city of Portsmouth in the Kingdom of England with prosecution under the Impostors Act. It seems that the schools of Portsmouth have been teaching the damnable and heretical doctrine that the earth is a sphere. Sir John's attention has been called to this dissemination of the seditious and treasonous, and it goes on, right? But the point of this is like, as Ruth has just said, so she must have been at school. If she was born in, 102 years ago, 1918, is that right? 1918. That means that by the time she was in school, it was probably at least 1925 or a little bit later, 25, 30, whatever. So even as late as that time, they were still teaching people in public schools in America and most likely in many other places, around the world, that the earth is flat, right? It hasn't been going on for thousands of years. They haven't known this for thousands of years. And the whole idea behind it is an utter lie. It's ridiculous. So, yeah, I think
really
that's...
gets you thinking about like World War One. What, that, and also comes back, I'm just thinking through history about the Federal Reserve System and the fact that America went bankrupt back in the early 1930s. What if that all corresponded at the same time? And when this cabal took over, that they totally eradicated our history books, changed the history books, removed the ones that were contrary to what the globe model, so that they created this impression that they've always believed that. And then the people who are taught that, like Ruth, they were embarrassed that they believed it at one time, that the earth was flat. They created this embarrassment, and so they never talked about it.
Exactly. Shaming. That's, and that's what they try to do to us. Oh, you stupid flat earthers, don't have kids. We're going to shame you. You're subhuman. You're not worth anything. And it's like, no, you guys don't seem to understand. You're the dumb ones, right? But, they have the mainstream on their behind them. Go ahead, Rodrigo.
Yeah, so no, they only announced the curvature, I think, in 1930, right? They actually said it's announced in a newspaper that they saw it from an airplane in an infrared photograph that doesn't show any curvature at all. It only started rolling after the 30s. I think the evidence for the curve.
Yeah, Rodrigo, you need to get closer to your microphone and stop jiggling it around because it's sounded kind of crappy.
But yeah, look how.
Go ahead, Austin.
Just how clearly what happened, like Ben's alluding to, is this was that article was before the cabal came in and got a little grabbly hands on the media when it was still some free facilitation of information, dissemination.
Yeah, exactly. And they really started buying up all the media, and that's why now you have 5 or 6 corporations that own literally all of the media, top to bottom. And, their tactics haven't changed. Look what Google is doing to Flat Earth. Look what, it's all nothing but ridicule, shaming. You're a moron if you believe this, don't have children, yada, yada, yada. And that's really the only way that they can silence these people because, when you get on and older and stuff like that, well, you don't really want to talk about that because you don't want people to call you stupid, in addition to you're getting old and senile or anything like that, right? It's amazing the psychological tactics that they use. So anyway,
Sorry there.
I just want to add, I think I believe her. I think that she was taught that.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you now, Rodrigo.
Yeah, sorry, I was in the headphone, the headset, and but yeah, the curvature they announced only in 1930 in that photograph that supposedly from an infrared photography from an airplane, and there's no curvature in it, but that comes out in a newspaper in I think in 1929 or 1930.
Yeah, awesome. So, all right. Anyway, great job, David. Next time you see Ruth, tell her that Bob, the host of the show, decided to make her an honorary Globebuster because you know why? She was there. There you have it. Hopefully that'll put a smile on her face.
Awesome.
Awesome. Okay.
Chat that he's going to call her this week and read the comments to her. Oh, she'll love that.
I think so too. What a wonderful lady.
Yeah, and it's just anytime you can make somebody's day like that, what could be better?
Yep. So, okay.
They've just said in the chat here that Curious J met a woman from Croatia who had the same story.
Yeah, that she was taught. I remember that story that she was taught that the Earth was flat, and then found out it was a sphere later on. Like what? And never really believed it because of what she was originally taught. So it's hard though. I mean, it's no surprise that Ruth had to believe in the sphere because it's pushed so hard and it's told this is fact and this is. Sometimes that's all people need to hear, right? They just need to hear it from science, and whatever they were taught just goes away because science says so.
Yep, exactly. So,
what if that World War I mechanism was used as a control to remove some of these books? That was at a time of totalitarianism, even in the United States. What if that was the time when they started to purge things? I think that's just a fascinating idea about history that we all have to take a closer examination of.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's just so hard because when you read some of these articles or anything, I mean, it's so easy for people to fall into the trap of just trusting the whole idea of so-and-so wrote about I mean, that's all they need to say, right? They need to say, oh, well, Aristophanes proved it in this date, or Ptolemy wrote geography at 1,300 years and said that the Earth was a sphere. That's all they need to say, and everybody just says, oh, well, it was written about in 1200. It was written about in 400 AD. Even though none of those books exist, none of those books can be found. They're all copies of copies of copies, or somebody writing about somebody who wrote back then. I mean,
and also, like you say, importantly as well, like you said the other night, there's no spheres from that period showing the Earth. What we have is like something like the Antikythera device, and that's a model of the cosmos that fits a geocentric model.
And they made so many things. I mean, think about everything that they made, and it would be very easy to craft a sphere and then start to put the location. The reason why there isn't one is because how ridiculous would it be that they would think, right? So if you think of where Europe is and kind of Asia, and they would just think that brick of land is there, and then there's nothing on the entire other part of the globe. Well, of course, because otherwise people would start asking, well, wait a second, if they were building these globes back in 400 AD, and they saw all this empty, nobody thought to go and search that to see if there was any more land? No, well, it took till 1492 for Columbus to do it, and it just makes no sense. Their story makes no sense.
It flies in the face of history as well, because we know that people are going east a long time ago. They're in contact. The Ethiopians were in contact with the Chinese with their seafaring. Nobody knows that not a lot of people know that the ancient Ethiopians were amazing seafarers. And Ethiopia is right by Egypt, and we know that Egypt, in the tomb of Tutankhamun, you have boomerangs that only exist in Australia. These other nations had been traveling. The Chinese are known to have gone all the way, to east from their perspective to the States, and
the Phoenicians,
other things.
All these guys.
Yeah, Vikings going to the States. Yeah.
So you can just tell when it's a kind of quote-unquote state-sponsored story comes out. It's just painfully obvious where you build up Columbus and you talk about him discovering America. These are just stories you tell little children.
It makes civic, like you said, civic holidays, right? You have a day for it as well to make sure everybody gets it.
Right.
Force upon them.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. The civic holidays they're killer, especially for tyrants. And, again, everything is backwards, the whole idea of Christmas and, all of our holidays. July 4th is just a joke, independence, and we're free. When you really start finding out a lot of the things and the real truth of the world, they're just laughing at you. They really are. But people think, oh, my God, we're such a great country and we're free.
You go out in the park, drink some beer, look at some fireworks, and that's it.
Yep. And then right after the cop writes you a ticket for drinking in public, then you can go home and proclaim yourself free.
Oh, my goodness.
All right. So next up, I am playing.
quick. Remember when Neil deGrasse said that flat Earth is a sign of a bad education system?
A failed education system, yes.
Yeah, education system. I was just thinking how ridiculous that is to say that, because it's kind of like, if you, I don't know, if you look at obesity and say that's a result of a failed gym system.
Right. But Darren, the thing is he's right.
Well, yeah, I mean, it failed to indoctrinate us enough. I guess.
That's exactly right. That was my point exactly.
We all were taught it. We all were sat down and shown it, but they rolled right over it. They rolled right through it. Right. Again, I always bring up, they don't think how great it would be in 6th grade to say, okay, this half of the classroom is flat, this half is sphere, and let's go out and prove it. They don't do anything like that. In fact, if they bring up anything, they just have to say, oh, and of course the ancient belief was that the earth was flat and boats would fall off of it. And of course we know that's not true, because you can go around the earth and you tell all the children who ever go through school ever of all time that story. And what do you expect people to come out believing? And yet you didn't do a good enough job proving it. So you're right. It is a basic failure of the education system.
Thank God.
Do a job explaining it. Thank God. Thank you.
Totally.
And when it manages to work, like in the case of Neil deGrasse Tyson, is just the case that I think in the Spacecrack, I make an analogy with Pavlov. You couldn't blame the dogs for salivating at the bell, because they're conditioned to it, to love it. And it's very, very, very similar. The analogy goes deep with the space, and it's what it is. It's a reward and punishment system. You get rewarded for saying right, you get punished for saying wrong, and it works.
Yep. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's exactly right. You get rewarded for repeating the information, and you get sent to the principal's office and sent home, and you better conform, or else you're going to be suspended and you're going to be expelled, and then your parents are going to spank you, at least back in those days. So you had no choice but to conform, sit in the desk, repeat exactly what they wanted you to repeat, and then give you a multiple choice question test, and whoever does the best job at remembering what the correct answers are moves on and gets promoted to the next higher education. And that's all they want. They want yes-sirs at every level, and nobody who questions anything.
Yeah, and that thing you just said about behavior else, that kind of blackmail, it starts early with Santa Claus. It's what it is. In other countries, even a bit more extreme. I think the Krampus version in Switzerland, they put you in a bag and takes you away if you don't behave.
Oh, I remember my parents telling me at one point, maybe it was because I had a younger sister or something, but I would say, when I started to doubt the Santa Claus story, then they told me, well, if you don't believe, then you don't get gifts. Oh, shit. Okay, then I do believe. How dare I? I didn't know. I can't question that. So, yeah, questioning has been removed, and I mean that's at all levels. I'm sure everybody knows that. There's just not a lot of jobs out there. It's why I got out of what I was doing. As far as a drugstore manager, I would question things and didn't like some of the policies, and they're ridiculous. I've told stories before where I had a 24-hour pharmacy store in Salinas, which is, always one of the top 10 worst cities to live in the country, not even just in California. And they would only let me hire people at 24 hours a week and $8 an hour. And I said, guys, don't you realize that when you do that, you're going to get people who steal from you. You're going to get people who don't care, who call in sick. I mean, nobody can. I said, let me hire full-time people at, $12 or $13 an hour, and I'll get good people in here who will do a good job overnight. And they said, nope, it's 24 hours maximum a week, and it's $8. Well, then you had people calling in sick. I had people stealing. Then they would come in and say, how come your shrink percentage went from, 0.5% to 1%? It's like, I told you that's what would happen. But when you question things like that, that's when I would get in trouble. You're not allowed to question. You're not allowed. And that's what I mean. The people who are rewarded are the people who say, okay, I will hire at only 24 hours. I will hire only at $8 an hour. Those are the people that moved along in the ranks and would end up becoming what? District managers, regional vice presidents, things like that. Not the ones who were questioning and doing what was right for their store, right for their employees, right for the customers. Anyway, it's off topic.
Yeah.
Yep. No worries. Okay. But point taken. I mean, it's absolutely what's going on. It's not okay to ask questions anymore. They used to say there's no stupid questions. You're here to learn. You should ask questions. And now it's like, no, if you question it, you're in trouble. Boy, has that changed. And yet they still keep spraying the same rhetoric of, oh, yeah, it's okay. It's good to ask questions. It's good to be inquisitive, unless you go against the mainstream narrative.
Right. It's like the whole thing with inclusiveness, right? Everybody has to be included, and it doesn't matter what you are, where you're from. Everybody's included. We're all equals. Unless you're a flat earther, then you're a stupid idiot. Right? I mean, it's like, well, what happened to all inclusion? What happened to everybody's equal and we're all the same? And but not if you believe that. Not if you go against mainstream science. If you dare say vaccines might injure a child, then you need to be ostracized and removed from society.
Yeah. Right, and newsflash to anyone that's listening: the flat earthers are the smart ones.
Yeah, right. Indeed, yeah, because we got brilliant globers like that are in the chat. Let's see, who is this guy? I just saw it. Damos somebody. Oh yeah, Earth was proven to be spherical over 4,000 years ago. Catch up, flat fools. 4,000 years ago, huh, Damos? Boy, you're a real genius, aren't you?
Yeah, primary sources for that, because I hate to tell you that you don't.
Oh my
Maybe
God!
That will be the story in another 10 years. Who knows?
Right?
Adam and Eve discovered the sphere.
Oh, they'll find some rock painting, a cave painting of a globe, and then say it's actually known 50,000.
Settles it.
They already
anyway.
do something very similar with Sumeria. They show the ancient aliens guys. They show some sort of engravings or whatever, carvings that show some balls in the sky, and they claim that whatever the different planets or whatnot, that they, the spheres in the sky. But, yeah.
Yep. Okay. All right, guys, let's move on to the next subject. And I've been playing the Grotto1 video, and if you guys don't know who Grotto1 is, he typically does like mechanically based, fix-it type of videos. But he developed an interest in flat Earth a couple of years ago. And a couple of years ago, he did a wonderful 8-mile test, which really stirred a lot of controversy. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes, but what I want to do before that is play a video that Ben actually made about this, and then we'll talk about it because Ben summed it up kind of nicely in just about 3.5 minutes, and then we will kind of cover exactly what's going on here, as if it isn't made obvious enough by Ben. But I think the story of Grotto1 and what went on with him a couple years ago is worth telling again. So let's give this a listen really quick and see what you guys think. Again, hat tip to Grotto1. Thank you, sir. Here we go.
Hello, everyone. Today I decided I needed to get back to what I love, and that's proving that we live on a flat and stationary Earth. I sometimes make the mistake of getting caught up in pointless debates with sellouts and their mindless army of automaton trolls. But I'm back. This new proof of the flat Earth comes from Grotto1 from a frozen lake in Manitoba, Canada. I strongly encourage everyone to head over to his channel and subscribe to show your support, because he obviously went to a lot of effort for truth here. For this curvature test, Grotto1 essentially set 4 lights at around 1 foot above the water and ice. He set up his camera at about 8 miles away from the furthest light and 5 miles away from the closest light. The lights were spread out at about a mile apart. At each location, Grotto1 drilled down to the water just to confirm that he wasn't on some irregular ice formation, and to also ensure that his test was on a level surface. The furthest light from the camera was the red light at 8 miles from the camera. The blue light was at about 7 miles, the yellow was at 6 miles, and the orange light was the closest one at 5 miles away from the camera. You should definitely watch his video where he goes into much more detail, but here he is sitting in his truck at a distance of 8 miles from the red light. Notice that the lights are all on the same flat plane. There is no Earth bulge and no physical globe horizon. Next, Grotto1 lowered his camera to only 12 7/8 inches above the surface. At that small elevation, the globe horizon would have to be closer than 1.27 miles, and the furthest light, the red one, should have been 29 feet below the horizon. That's taking into account the 1 foot height of the light. Notice how the lights are all on the same flat plane. There's absolutely no supposed bulge here. And if there is no curvature on that frozen lake, then there is no Earth curvature anywhere. Look at the red light. That light should be 29 feet below the horizon. It's just amazing that they got away with this lie for so long. Finally, Grota 1 brought his camera down even lower to just 5 7/8 inches off of the ice. At this very low elevation, the red light would have to be a whopping 33 feet below the horizon. That's 34 feet minus the 1 foot height of the laser. Without question, the globe fails again. Furthermore, under the official model, the globe horizon would have to be closer than a mere 0.86 miles. There is no globe physical curve here, blocking your view. As Grota 1 demonstrated on this frozen lake, regardless of the conditions, the Earth is observably, testably, repeatedly, and measurably flat. Yes, we were all lied to. Yes, they control our education. Yes, they control our media. Yes, they control our governments. Yes, they control all of our major institutions. But they still don't own your soul and your ability to think independently and to shake off the conformity and to break free from these mental controls. And that is how, with God's help, we can win. And we must win.
Beautiful, Ben. Very nice video.
Thanks.
Okay.
No, I mean, it's all kudos to Grota 1 for, I mean, he's been out there now doing these tests for quite a while. I've actually had several videos I started trying to make for him, and he makes another one, and I have to try to include that one. And it's just been this long process. So I've actually been on his stuff for actually a couple months now, but he's done this test repeatedly, regularly over that frozen lake. And without a doubt, that lake is a flat lake. I mean,
look at that.
The lights are in a perfect, they're in a straight line. The horizon is you can actually see it's beyond all the lights, but that horizon should have been 0.8 miles away. It's beyond 8 miles. I mean, how much more evidence do you need? I mean, the best the globe supporters have come up with is say, oh, the lights are flickering. Well, there's atmosphere there still. You know what I mean? Like when you look up at the stars, they flicker. What do they say that's from? Is from the curvature of the Earth? Anyway, but just kudos to Grota 1.
Ben, I think I can see every lake in the world because maybe just this lake is flat. So until we do this test on every single lake, I'm going to deny it. That's nothing. We can just dismiss it.
Yeah. Well, we got Florida, we got the state of Washington, we got Finland, Italy, Hungary. Russia, Hungary, everywhere. It's flat. I mean, at some point they're going to have to prove that big, huge hump of curvature that I don't know what they're. Wherever they claim that's going to be, maybe they'll claim that's in Antarctica or something like that. The real curvature.
No, eventually they'll say it's only in the Atlantic and Pacific Ocean. The two that we can't test across.
I think one thing about this is that in the first observation before during the day, or it was like you tend to forget how low he is to the ground when you see that zoomed in image that Ben stopped on. You had the lights. You tend to forget how far a zoom that is, and once he brings that camera back, you get a sense of just how far that was and how close he was to the surface. It's pretty remarkable. But it's I don't know. Those details I think are important. I mean, at least for me, because if you go there and do it yourself, of course you have an appreciation of this. But over the video, I think is important to compare, the last frame when it's not zoomed to the full zoom and how flat it is. Yeah, that storm is hitting it pretty hard.
Yeah, it sounds pretty major. Okay, so I mean, this is beautiful. He went through all this effort, and of course, if you guys don't know the story, a couple years ago when he first came out with his first lake test, and it may have been this very same lake, I'm not sure, but he was firing a laser across the lake, and what was different about that and unique is he set the laser up. I think it was less than 2 feet off the ground, right? He fires the laser across the lake. He's going across on a snowmobile, a skidoo, right? And you can see the laser in the frame the whole time, right? He never leaves it, right? So it's not, disappearing behind the horizon, and then all of a sudden there's some miraculous refraction change where it jumps up above. It's there from the get-go all the way across. And then when he gets to the other side, right, and the Globers had a cow over this, right? When he gets to the other side, he signals to his guy running the laser on the other side of the lake, 8 miles away, right, to see if he can lower the laser a little bit just to see what happens. Well, when he did that, the laser actually hit the ground at his location. It hit there were like some little weeds and grass or something right on the other side where he was at. No, it was a snowbank. That's what it was. And it actually hit that, like about an inch off of the ground, right? Well, the Globers went insane, right? Why? Because they said, well, he didn't level the laser, so that makes everything invalid. But what the Globers don't seem to understand is that if the world was curved, then it would have hit the ground long before, right? It would have hit the ground long before it could have ever possibly hit the ground, at Grotto 1's location, right? So really, when you're talking about these kind of tests, leveling the laser is really quite irrelevant, because otherwise, even if it was level and we were on a ball, that laser beam would have been something like 30 feet above the guy's head, right? And you never would have been able to see it. But just the fact that not only did he track it all the way across the lake, tells you that there is no refraction involved here. The other thing that tells you there's no refraction involved here, at least in my opinion, is in order for there to be a change of beam direction or a refractive type of action, there must be a change in medium, right? Well, it's pretty unlikely that this would have happened because, first of all, he's doing it on a frozen lake. It is, in the teens, I believe. It was like in the single-digit numbers, right? So humidity would have been pretty much ruled out at that point because it would have crystallized and fallen to the ground, first of all. The fact that it was, over a frozen lake, it's not like there's going to be any thermals or any, ultra excited hot air above it. So really, over that 8 miles, there was nothing that would possibly change the density of the air. And remember, that's what is required for a refractive change, is a change in density. So here we have the best conditions in the world. It's ice cold outside. It's below freezing. There's no humidity in the air. The temperature certainly isn't going to change 8 inches or a foot above the ice all the way across that lake. Therefore, there is going to be no refraction, or at least the odds of it would be astronomical that there would be anyway. So, and for it to be able to be guided down and absolutely hit the ground 8 miles away is simply impossible on a spherical model. Can't happen. But yeah, he took crap because he didn't have his laser leveled. But this time, I guarantee you guys, he leveled it this time. And he took all the precautions and eliminated all the stupid arguments that the Globers had. And, now he just shoved this one right in their face. So there you have it. It's beautiful, beautiful piece of work, Grotto 1. And, yeah, what else can you say about it?
Nope, the proofs keep on coming. I mean, it's just you're seeing way too far, and they can try and explain it anything they want, but you have to have line of sight to see things. And yet, in these cases, we're seeing way too far. If anybody knows, Ben knows.
Yeah, and so again, this could be one of those things that some might call a black swan. It's not a black swan, as Ben so eloquently said. This is another one of those everyday swans, right, Ben? I mean.
Yeah, I'm just actually kind of surprised how people got so upset about that. But to me, it's just pointing out the fact, and I don't mean any offense to Nathan or any of those guys. The only thing I was trying to point out is this happens all the time. This isn't just any rare event. And as Grotto 1 just showed us, I've shown in countless other videos, the horizon does not hold up under the globe model whatsoever. It does not exist. It's an apparent horizon based on perspective, has nothing to do with the physical curvature. The globe submergers, they can't get around it. There's nothing they can do to get around that because that's their basis of their claim that the ships are disappearing behind that. And so if you now they can't say, well, it doesn't exist. I mean, well, I guess they can say that. They always say those contradictory things, but
yeah.
Anyway,
well, that's the thing. They'll make something at any point, at any time they can. I mean, the fact comes down to on a sphere Earth, the horizon is the physical edge. I mean, that's what they say. If you're on a ball Earth, that's what the horizon is. It's us who's been saying the whole time, no, it's an apparent position. No, you can't actually measure to that point. It's them saying, no, our calculator does measure to that point. We know exactly how far away that is. It's what blocks distant observations, according to those who believe that they live on a sphere. But I mean, the horizon is the sphere edge in Narnia. It absolutely is. It has to be. And so when you can see a horizon well beyond that, then anybody who's awake, anybody who's alert, realizes that that's a great globe killer. It destroys the globe. How are we seeing horizons beyond horizons? It doesn't make any sense if that's...
Well. There's a multiverse.
Yep.
Then everything's possible.
Yeah.
Yep. Go ahead, Austin. Were you going to say something?
Yeah. Just like he said, people, of course, these globers, they don't actually want to know the truth, but this is literal refutation of the globe model. But, and of course, with the black swan thing, of course, we all know the analogy being, just we need only one observation of this sort to show that it's not a globe. But just like Ben was saying, I mean, this is what all observations show. So really, it is just the typical swan, because all horizons are apparent all the time. They are all apparent. There is no such thing as a physical geometric horizon.
And that's well said right there. That's exactly why we're all on the same page. As confused as people out there might be, it's the exact same thing that we're all saying. If you look at it as a black swan, as in, oh, well, if every swan is white and you find that one black swan, then yes, you can prove that not all swans are white. Great. Same thing with this observation, right? I mean, if that's what is supposed to be the sphere edge, then you can find one observation like this that shows that that's not. The problem is this isn't just one observation. People can go out and do this themselves. It's not just one. So we're all on the same page here, and it's a great globe killer, and it should be pushed as so. But as Bob said, there is a preponderance of evidence. This is just continued more and more evidence, more and more proof, and all the globers can do is can backtrack, make things up. They can't even say looming anymore. Now they're being told not to say looming. They're running out of options because the world is not the one that their geometry tells them that should be. Well, what do they do about that? Well, they can either question the geometry, they can question the world they live in. Whatever they have to do, it's a problem for them and not for us.
Yeah.
And to just kind of touch on that, what's the big deal? Like, I know we all like probably had our different ways that we had to go through accepting that the flat earth truth, but like, why is it such a big deal? Like, why are you making yourself do all of these hypocritical backflips? Just, bro, it's all good. Chill, bro. The earth is flat. It's not a big deal.
Not a big deal.
Exactly, Austin. And I was saying that, on Friday's Lounge, I was saying that the same thing. It's like, look, this is a great proof, but we're not going to beat it to death. We're not going to talk about it every episode ad nauseum. It's like it's another one of those things. And I was getting flack from the chat saying, well, yeah, but by you writing it off like not such a big deal, Bob, people are then going to deny it. And I'm like, they're going to deny it anyway. It's like, it's not going to make a damn bit of difference that, I mean, look at are the globers saying, oh yeah, you're right. You got us with the black swan. Is there one glober that has said that? No. It's like, come on, get real. It's so ridiculous to even say that. And there were flat earthers that were actually getting offended because I said, yeah, it's a great piece of evidence, but it's not, a black. And what about the people in Australia, right? Where I think it's Australia or New Zealand, one of the two, where that's the norm, is there's all black swans, right?
That's what I'm saying. It's like all swans are black then, because all the observations, and I guess you're going to touch upon Jay Tolan's observation as well. They're showing some of these phenomena have been seen before, and the problem with the analogy of the black swan is that it implies that there's a bunch of these white swans, meaning proofs of the curvatures or observations of the curvature, right? And then you get the black swan that really proves it the other way, but it's not. It's that all swans are black.
Yeah, the black swan is supposedly the exception to the rule. This is not the exception to the rule. This is just another proof that's excellent, like all of our other ones, like what Grotto 1 just did. Like, oh God, we could go on all day. I mean, let's get real. What about the microwave test, guy? What about the 250-kilometer microwave test that just simply should have never happened? Yada, yada, yada. We could go on all day long about these things. So, yeah, we have the preponderance of evidence, and really, I still think that's the best term. It is a cumulative preponderance, a stockpile, if you will, of evidence that is simply undeniable. And every single time, they're just going to say, oh, nice globe proof. Go ahead, Jaron.
I was just going to say, or Life is Short's latest video where he shows a light disappearing from it's 2.5 inches high and he's 400 feet away. It's impossible. That just tells you that what you're seeing there is not Earth curve. So, I mean, they just keep coming every day. They keep coming. And if other shows want to harp on certain facts, great. I'll never tell another show what they can and can't do, which is not always the same for the other side. But
right. And where's their proofs? Where are their proofs? Right? Where are their undisputable proofs? Where are their black swans? We all know what their rotation, their Earth rotation proof is, right? Oh, Bob the Flat Earther said so. He proved it. There's our proof. I mean, that's
proof is my light test that didn't even go well and didn't work. It's like, had to be misrepresented in a movie, and that's their proof. So they're running out of things to even hold on to, and I just think that people need to recognize that the more people get these cameras and the more that they go out, and now that they understand how that particular, I don't want to beat it to death, but I'll just keep saying it again. Just the fact that we had those platforms out in that water really kind of got people thinking about, okay, well, if we have a known distance to a certain thing, so now people can go out and maybe there's an island that is a certain distance away from you. Maybe it's 8, 9, 10 miles, and you can lower your camera to a certain position, and if you're seeing horizon beyond that island, there's a problem. You shouldn't be able to see water or horizon beyond it. Why? Because that's the physical edge of that sphere Earth. And believe me, if there is no physical edge to the sphere Earth, if we're able to see past that, then there is no sphere Earth. Period.
Yep. Period. Exactly. So, all right. Anyway, let's not turn this into a black swan and beat it to death. Let's go ahead and move on. I think we made our point, and believe me, like I said, nobody's against that evidence at all. It's just not, I couldn't believe I was getting flack, and Jaron was getting flack for not making every show 24 hours a day that we do about this argument. It's like, it's ridiculous, and it's boring AF. You can only take it for so long. Okay. So, all right, cool. Let's move on. And before I get to the main presentation, I want to show you guys something that I saw on the Friday Feel Good show that Robin Lifting the Lid does. And if you guys, by the way, shout out to Robin Lifting the Lid. If you guys have not checked out his channel, you absolutely should. He runs one of my favorite Flat Earth shows, if not my favorite Flat Earth show out there, that is on a weekly basis every Friday. It's on at like 9:30 Mountain Time, so that's 8:30 Pacific. That would be 11:30 Eastern, and I don't know, 10:30 or something like that. Anyway, yeah. So it's a great show. He always has the really good things and very uplifting stuff. And it's very entertaining and everything. And this particular clip that I'm going to show here, and this is just kind of, stepping back from the seriousness a little bit, little 3-minute and 47-second clip that was done by YouTuber Tell Me What You Love. And I think David posted this in the Globebusters chat, and I absolutely died laughing when I saw it. This is so hilarious. And the one thing I will say is that if you get so wrapped up in the comedy of what's going on with these punches and stuff, that the first time I almost missed completely the message that was being displayed, right in plain sight. So I would suggest that, try and keep an eye on the funny stuff that's going on in the background as well as what is being said. But yeah, I just want to break up the monotony a little bit, and let's play this, and let's see what you guys think. Here we go.
Fighting tip. Now, we've been getting a lot of heat from you guys online for our speed hitting video where we did 100 hits in a single second. A lot of you are saying it's fake. A lot of you are counting and saying we didn't do enough moves. Well, I'm here to tell you, we were going easy on you last time. Okay? We're not going to go easy on you this time. We're going to show you the incredible power of Meridote by doubling up. We're going to do 200 hits in a single second. We're filming with our special camera again in super slow motion, not just regular slow motion, super slow motion. I'm going to do all the moves in real time first. We're going to play it back so you can see the incredible speed that I possess. Ready. Set. Play that back and see what the heck I did this time.
what you're seeing here is a mirage. You typically would not be able to see this. Conditions are right on the lake, but we're actually seeing a mirage.
This is what will make it soon possible to achieve something once thought impossible. Only high quality beats.
It is Photoshop, but it's.
Can you touch on how there are air bubbles in space? Can you be more specific? Air bubbles?
Alexander Chesney.
The world is flat.
Only high quality beats.
We don't. It's flat.
Hello? No, I told you not to call me when speed is. Okay, bye.
Man, and they're buying it.
Oh God, that just cracked me up. I was absolutely giggling the whole time. It's hilarious.
I'm just in
giving
awe.
him so much work.
I'm in awe of the epicness of that mustache, bro.
That is so funny. That's exactly what I was thinking.
I know, it seems like every time I watch it, I catch something new. So it's awesome. So shout out to Tell Me What You Love. Absolutely epic video. And he does some really, really good stuff. And I know that Robin on his Friday podcast highlights a lot of his stuff. So yeah, again, definitely sub to both of these guys. Tell Me What You Love and Lifting the Lid. I guarantee you will not be unhappy about it. So there you have it.
Bob, is this the guys who did the videos? Are they the ones in the video itself?
No, I think I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that the guys that did it are. Well, I'm not sure who the guys are that did it. I was under the impression that he took somebody else's video and then overlaid it, but I don't know. I guess we'd have to ask him, or maybe Robin knows.
It's interesting. You're saying this is a video somebody else made for another purpose, and he transformed it into a flat Earth video.
I would guess that, but again, I'm not 100% sure. All I know is when I saw it, it made me laugh, and I really liked it, so I just wanted to share it.
Yeah, those people are somebody else, Ken and whoever else that is.
It's funny because so they didn't do it with the flat Earth in mind, because they managed to just make it fit the bubbles and everything else. It seemed like it was a flat Earth thing from the get-go.
Yeah, well,
Pluto, the bubbles.
Could have been him just overlaying the text on it too. So it's it's really hard to say, but anyway, it was well done, and he's just really good at stuff like this. So excellent. All right. So let's move on to the presentation of why I said getting the right angle on flat Earth. And as many of you know, I talked on the Jeranism Lounge show Friday, and I said I'm going to show you guys something that I think is another one of those, black swans, if you will, that's hidden right in plain sight. But before I do that, I want to give you a little bit of background, because what we need to do is we need to look at this Soundly video, and we need to get an idea about what the Globers consider submissible evidence, okay? And the most important thing that I want to show about this particular whatever it is by Soundly is the fact that what he's trying to highlight here is we have a reference point, of this flat ground starting right here, right? And then as it goes off, it goes down. And so when you look at it from down here, compared to back here, you can see that it's very much lower, right? Or at least that's what he's trying to say. Now, we know this is nonsense. We know this is a compressed image. And, if you need a little help in determining this, all you have to do is look at these bridges, right? This is so insane that the ballers did not call him out on this. I mean, you would need a winch and a four-wheel drive to drive up and down this bridge, right? It's so preposterous. I mean, my God, the ballers will take anything for evidence. And then you got, the clowns like Wolfie6020 who will back it. People like Charles Flat Earth Map who will back this and say, oh yeah, this is absolutely legit. Just like the boats going over the curvature, here we go. We're actually able to see the curvature. They do the math for it, and it's like, wow, it even comes out to be a Ball Earth. It matches the Ball Earth prediction. It's like, really? I look at that and I would say if that matches the Ball Earth prediction for math, as far as, sphericity, then it must be the size of Colorado, right? Or smaller, to get this.
Yeah, follow the horizon line.
Yeah, right.
They compressed the image on the left side and left it on the straight. I mean, the fact that they actually have to resort to these kind of tactics is proof in itself that they have nothing, and that they're despicable, evil liars, and they go rot for all I care. Anyone who even backs that up, like Wolfie and Flat Earth Matt, to say that that's proof of curvature, they're liars, they're scumbags.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, look at the engineers. I mean, they would be arrested if you try to make a bridge like this. Like, this is kind of who would ever design a bridge like this and get it approved with this?
Well,
it's unbelievable.
It is, and we've had, of course, flat earthers go out there, with cameras and actually drive it, right? And what it is, it's a very, very gradual, nice, soft, easy, mellow, incline and then a decline on the other side. But this, I mean, I looked at that, I'm like, seriously, what do they use this for, the Jeep four-wheel drive championships or what? I mean, it's just ridiculous.
So intense. Wow. Yeah, and imagine if it rains, the danger that something like this would be.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it's just preposterous but the idea behind it, I mean, I have to laugh at that every time and point that out. But what they're trying to show here, and this is important because this is where I'm going to go. When I ask you guys to consider what I'm going to ask you to consider, right? And that is we have a reference point of this right here, right? And then we're seeing this drop down here, and this is obviously acceptable to the Globers, right? So if this is acceptable to the Globers, because remember, I'm sure anybody that's been around long enough, and this came out, my God, how long ago? 2018. Okay, so it's been over 2 years, right? Well, no, it's been not quite 2 years. But I think this was just one of many, but he was doing this forever. And I mean, it ran and on and on and on and on. And, he kept coming out with these ridiculous proofs. And, then his CGI moon, what was it? The moonshine, right? That's a whole nother story. Oh my God, that was crazy. I mean, these guys are the biggest clowns, and they're dead serious about this. To them, this is absolutely provable evidence, right? Okay, well, and anybody that's been around long enough to know this knows that. So the point is to show that this is acceptable to the Globers. Simple as that. All right.
One thing that's curious about this, Bob, is that how the tree line seems to remain almost at the same level despite the curvature of the lake. So that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
Kind of problem.
I mean, there's so many things wrong with this. We could go on all day, but like I said, the only thing I want to show is what they're trying to show here. Reference point from this to this, and this is going to show even at ground level. Well, this is going to show maybe 20 foot, 30 foot of droppage, right? Whatever. Great. Okay. So we know this is acceptable to the baller, so they would have to accept this as well. But what's interesting about this, right, is we get the counter stories like from Neil deGrasse Tyson. I probably should have brought that clip up, but everybody I know has seen it, where he's got the beach ball, right? And he's saying, when you look at this, it's you've got the ISS, or you've got a balloon at 200,000 feet, and that stuff is flat. You're going to see it as flat. And the big fallacy here that they try and tell us when we show them our high altitude balloon footage is they say, well, the reason that you can't see anything is because we've got a 7,900, essentially 8,000 mile diameter Earth, right? And when you look at something like the ISS, which is only 250 miles up above it, or our balloon footage, which is only 125,000 foot, let's say, above the ground. Well, when you do the math, and this is where they try and fool you. When you do the math, that 125,000 feet above the ground is only a minuscule fraction of that 8,000 mile Earth diameter, right? So you'd never be able to tell it. You'd never see that curvature, right? Well, obviously, Stanley didn't take that into consideration here when he was trying to show that. It's like, where's that other 8,000 miles of stuff that you're trying to show here? The point is that whole idea is ridiculous. And I made this point also a couple years ago when I was talking about, there's a point on Maui where you can stand on Maui and you can look to your left and you can see a little island called Kahualaui. And then you can look all the way to your right and you can see Molokai, right? And it's almost 100 miles, between those two islands that you can see. And of course, as we know, in 100 miles, you've got 6,666 foot of curvature. So, I was saying at the time that, you should be able to see a mile at least, right? Even if it wasn't quite 100 miles, you should be able to see that mile of curvature difference. Why? Because you're not referencing it from the other side of the freaking Earth. You're referencing it from one side to the other, right?
Yeah.
Now, when we look
horizontally.
Exactly.
Right, that's what you're saying. Across the horizon, you see one island and then another one, and they're 100 kilometers apart. Of course, you should see something there.
Exactly.
In their geometry. Yeah.
Because even the hills themselves, the islands themselves, they will have, maybe they'll go up to 1,500 foot, right? Well, my God, you can absolutely see that 1,500 foot above the sea level with respect to the sea level, right? Absolutely you can. So, like I said, the obfuscation technique that the ballers try and give us is, well, you got to compare it to this 8,000 mile, and then it's such a small amount, there's no way you'd ever see it. Well, that is just horse manure, all right? So what I'm talking about here, and as I was watching this fantastic piece of work from Jay Tolan, right, is I'm sitting here looking at this, and I'm going, he's making his graph, about where you can see off on the horizon, right here, you can see this thing. And this is really wonderful footage. And what you've got here is you've got a bunch of clouds up here and you've got the ground down here. And then he does some zoom in. But I want you to just look at this in and of itself. And he's saying, and he's shown on his map, that we have got at least 250 miles of visibility here. Now, what's the curvature on 250 miles, right? Something like what, about 8 miles? Something like that? Would we agree with that? Somebody can run the math really quick if you want to. But I think it's about 7.5 to 8 miles. That would be my guess. So what I did is I was sitting here looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, well, we got these clouds up here and I'm like, I wonder what those clouds are. So I looked up typical cloud elevations, right? So we've got the low below 8,500 feet or less than 2 miles, right? We've got stratocumulus, stratus, cumulus, towering cumulus, cumulonimbus. The middle area from 8,500 feet to 20,000 foot, which would be just shy of 4 miles. You've got nimbostratus, altostratus, altocumulus, and then above 20,000 foot, and not too much above, because you don't see clouds, basically at 30,000 feet, really. At least if you do, it sure isn't very often. You've got the cirrostratus, cirrocumulus, and cirrus clouds, all right? So essentially, if we keep these figures in mind, right, and we go back to, whoops, wrong one. We go back to this picture of Jay Tolan, right? Now, I want you guys to think about this for a second. So if we have a reference point, referencing from the ground, right, to these clouds, and let's just for the heck of it, give it 3 miles, all right? Let's just say that these clouds are 3 miles above the ground, right? Now, what one would expect to see by using these references and understanding where the clouds are, and he zooms all the way down, and you can see clouds all the way down here, but of course the clouds have dropped slightly. But when you are looking at this, we now have a reference point of what would be approximately 3 to 4 miles, and it doesn't really matter that we're not right on the money. The point here is that if we can see that this is how much of a difference it is with respect to the ground right in front of us, and we know that this horizon off here should be somewhere between 7 or 8 miles below, well, then we should see at least this amount that's between the Earth and the clouds fall off into oblivion, right? We don't see anything like that. In fact, what do we see, guys? We see the horizon appear to be rising as it goes further and further and further away, right? But that's the whole thing. When you look at something like this, don't let them tell you that you have to compare this to the 8,000 mile diameter of the Earth. That is preposterous. It would fall off, right? In comparison to these clouds or anything like this, if this is showing us 4 miles above, then by God, we should be able to see that drop, down below the Earth. Right. And that is, what I was talking about when I said that this is one of those very obvious things that's right in front of our face, that we have something to gauge it with. And yet, rather than fall away, as always, we have the horizon rising to eye level. What do you guys think about this for a proof?
So is it more about the clouds and the horizon than just the horizon beyond the horizon? That's what you're saying here.
Exactly. The clouds give us a reference point, so we know those clouds are somewhere between 3 and maybe we'll say between 2 miles and 5 miles up, right? So whatever they are, we can see there's a huge difference between the clouds and the ground, right? And we're not seeing that fall off. In other words, this point back here at the all the way towards us should be falling off with respect to this. Remember soundly, right? And that curvature, it should be going down by at least this amount.
Oh yeah, much more that crazy curvature there.
Right. Do you guys see this, or am I crazy, or what? Any objections?
No, you're absolutely right, and it's actually one of those points I've been trying to make with respect to that the so-called black swan, is the fact that the second platform, the third platform that was 26 miles away, was prospectively higher. So how can, when it's supposed to be dropping, how can that distant object be prospectively higher? And you're looking at that horizon there with the ocean and everything. You can see it's prospectively higher, but it's supposed to be dropping away. It isn't. There's no dropping whatsoever. And if they believe in that drop, like Soundly does and lies about it, you have a huge contradiction there. This is just absolutely impossible. That picture there from Jay Tolan Media, which is just awesome, in his work there with the angles and everything, it just proves without a doubt that there is absolutely no dropping away. And if there is no dropping away, and if you still want to believe in a ball, you got to come up with some magical theory of why the world appears flat.
Exactly. But again, the ballers will come back and say, well, it's 8,000 miles. You'd never be able to tell that simple 3 or 4 miles in contrast to the 8,000 miles. And that is horse manure, because we are not referencing it from the bottom of the ball. We are referencing it from a place right in front of us, just like the ballers obviously seem to think is okay to do, right? Because Soundly does it. Here's his reference point. Here's his falling away. Well, that doesn't happen adhere, and we're seeing at least 250 miles. And Jay Tolan, as you guys know, there's stuff out there that is potentially 1,000 miles away. And even if it's not 1,000 miles away, it's certainly several hundred miles away, right, with this infrared. And it should be falling off. There should be miles and miles and miles of curvature. Now, conversely, think about this. Now, what about this left to right? Right? Same exact argument. I don't know.
That's the problem there.
Yeah.
It's a big problem. Nobody talks about that, but then you're getting compression also horizontally, and there should be a big, it's a huge point.
It should be
there,
huge.
I think.
Yeah, it wouldn't be, honestly, if it was curved, it wouldn't be a very, very slight curve. We would see a massive curve, because if you're going to talk, that we should see a mile or two curvature, like what I was saying about, being on Maui and looking, to the left at Kahulawi and to the right at Molokai, there should be 6,000 foot of curvature there with respect to any reference point on the ground that you can pick out. Right? It should be so unbelievably, glaringly obvious. But the ballers...
How much is 6,000 feet in terms of, like, in how many buildings, what is a reference you can give for that? What is that?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, mountains, right? You're talking about mountains. It would be a small mountain.
Right. That's the amount that's missing there.
Yeah. I mean, even Pikes Peak, which is 14,125 feet, that's 14,125 feet above sea level. The base of the mountain, Pikes Peak, and that's one of the tallest mountains, if not the tallest mountains in Colorado, the base of the mountain is about 6,000 feet, right? So it's really only an 8,000 foot mountain. Now, I don't know about the Himalayas or where they start, but they go up to what, something like 20, how many thousand feet, whatever it is, right? So what I'm saying is that if I can look at the Colorado Rockies and know that those things are 5,000 foot above the ground, and I can look all the way up and down the Front Range from essentially Pikes Peak to, Loveland, to the north. That's easily over 100 miles. I should be able to see from that left to right curvature something that is much more contrasted than the mountains themselves. And yet the mountains appear to be straight across the top all the way from left to right. Right? So again, this is one of those stupid Glober tricks that people fall for, and they try and convince you that, well, no, you've got to compare this in reference to the ball itself. It's like, no, you don't. You have a reference point, and we should be absolutely positively seeing these massive amounts of curvature, and we never, ever, ever see it. So it's not even a matter of looking for a little bit of curvature. There should be huge amounts of curvature, right?
And you keep giving them slack as well, like you pointed out the other day, that you make it extra easy for them. Ben's talked about this as well. You give him some slack on the altitude, the height of the observer, whatnot, and still find way more than you need for being flat. One thing, one of the tricks I remember, I think Jaron talked to Life is Short about this, is Wolfie's airplane wing. And how, he was claiming that the, relationship between the airplane wing and the horizon change in flight without, pointing out that the plane's wings are flexible. They have to float, and they'll be moving, in one direction. And he tried to claim that because, do you remember this, Jaron? I think you do. That's one other trick, one of those tricks, right?
Sorry, I was muted. Definitely. We talked about it with Travis, and it's definitely the same thing. You're talking about when you look out the wing and it kind of curves up, and they're like, oh, it's below the wing, and therefore the wing's flying level, so the horizon's below. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. So what I want to hear from is I want to hear from Baller Jaron, I want to hear from Baller Austin, and I want to hear from Baller Ben. And what you guys, as your baller counterparts, what are you going to say to me in response to this?
Well, what they always say, we'd say is some magical refraction property.
Right.
The crazy aspect of this is, this same magical refraction property applies to Grow to One's video. It applies to BMLS B69's video. This same magical property, doesn't matter how high you are, what the weather conditions are, it always just presents this false flat Earth. This is just some voodoo science that they have here, that it just everything levels out to be flat all the time in our vision. I mean, come on. I mean, what is nature trying to trick us into believing in a flat Earth? Why? Where are the discussions at the PhD level of why does nature trick us into believing in a flat Earth? I mean, shouldn't that be interesting?
Why
Shouldn't that be interesting to every academic out there of why in the world that ground in the ocean everything appears absolutely flat? I mean, where are these discussions?
Bob, we've already heard them say that if the Earth were just 7 times bigger or whatever, you'd be able to see your own ass. So I mean, that's their belief. I'll find the article where it says that if you had a telescope and the same 7.6R and the Earth was bigger, and I mean they basically think that because we can see so far that you must be seeing behind curves, and the whole idea of having line of sight is out the window. I mean, how many times can we go out to the Salton Sea and show mirror flashes from 28 miles away? How many times can we? Can they see Canigou? And their only excuse is all just like Ranty was talking to me earlier about Simon Dan, who basically told his subscribers, look at this picture, and didn't mention the fact that there's supposed to be, a certain amount hidden, and we can only see a small percentage of that. Because his whole claim is, well, we don't need to pay attention to the globe calculations or the globe math because part of this observation is hidden. It's the same thing they do when we look across, Lake Michigan, right? And we see the buildings in Chicago. All they have to come back to is, yeah, but the bottoms of the buildings are covered. It's like, yeah, we know that, but we see buildings. That's the problem, is that they should be well behind the curve, but they're not. Why? Well, because we've already explained that things disappear from the bottom up. All you have to do is go watch the video Life is Short just put out, and he's going to do a presentation on my channel soon, and you'll be able to see that he's absolutely proven that things at even a short distance disappear from the bottom up. And Nathan Oakley's talked about the brick example, and there's so many different examples that all you need to do is go out and see it for yourself, that things disappear from the bottom up, and especially when you're looking across vast bodies of water. And that's just the way the observation goes. But for them, it's always something. They always got an answer. But Ben's exactly right. That would be my Ball or Jaron answer to you, is that all light that we see, everything that we see, bends around with the curvature of the Earth.
Yeah, right. Well, Ben and Jaron, y'all must not have heard of the pseudo-prolific Loomtastic refractive index. So you need to study before you bring these postulations. So what's actually happening is this appearance of the horizon rising. It's, again, the pseudoprolific Loomtastic refractive index. It's actually making the geometric horizon turn into an apparent horizon and then reappear in the distance. But it is, in fact, there, I promise.
So there's just multiple horizons. Yeah, that's my answer. Multiple.
Yes, exactly.
Depends which one you're looking.
Yeah, I just
look for the close one. Or
I just wanted to recommend a. Go ahead, Jaron. Sorry.
That was it. Go ahead.
All right. Well, I just wanted to recommend a couple of channels. Well, he's very few subscribers, but the channel's name is Sky Free, and he's been doing a lot of those lights over the pond tests and boats over the pond. I mean, and they disappear. They shouldn't be disappearing under the curvature formula, and they are. Fantastic work by Sky Free. I also wanted to mention that video by Rob Skiba recently, that one where the magnification again, demonstrating how it does appear that that's exactly why the bottoms of the buildings are disappearing. But also that it kind of combines with Life is Short's presentation. So just some other things to think about.
So wait, are you denying the prolific Loomtastic refraction, Ben?
Well, I mean, the mental hoops that they have to jump through. I mean, you think about it, it's perspectively higher the more distant object. So how does that happen on a globe? And when it's supposed to be falling lower, they have to somehow, with like BMLSB 69's video, where it shows that the bulge would had to have been in front of the second platform, so it disappeared, then reappeared many miles beyond the third platform, but it somehow leaves those, the objects in between unaffected by this, disappearing bulge of water and reappearing of it. I mean, the mental hoops that they have to jump through to satisfy their illusion, it's actually mind-boggling to me.
Well, you're getting closer, bro. You're getting closer. Yeah, it's actually just you don't seem to know there's like 17 different types of horizons. So this is actually the astrological Loomtastic horizon. So you just need to do more research, bro.
Exactly. I think they have been abandoning the looming idea, where they put out those videos and pictures. I mean, of the ships that look like they're floating in the air, when truly there's a horizon behind them. I mean, things like that. They're losing the argument big time, and so I'm actually afraid that the next step is doing something horrible to us, and that's what scares me about the rhetoric of Neil deGrasse Tyson calling us terrorists and everything else.
Exactly. I fear the same thing, Ben. I really do. But let's just hope for the best, prepare for the worst, and hope that doesn't happen. But you can't put anything past these guys, and it all comes down to it's in direct proportion to their desperation, and we are killing them so bad in every way, shape, and form. Their desperation level is pretty high. I think that's pretty obvious to everybody.
Right, it just shows you how desperate they are that they just instantly start doing backflips, man. I mean, it's like they not even know like what's coming out of their mouth at this point. They're saying, like they say, looming. Looming is relative to the horizon. That does not explain anything to do with the horizon.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Crazy.
And as far as the argument about being able to see all the way around to your butt, and this is something that, Jaron and I covered a couple of years ago. I brought this up. I made Jaron get out the paint thing and draw a sphere, but I think I can do it with Google Earth here. But essentially, I want you guys to think about something, and this is something, again, that the Globers never, ever, ever talk about, because it's another one of those things that absolutely destroys their argument, and that is consider this. If you are standing, let's just say you're standing right here on the top of the Earth, right? Doesn't really matter where you are because we're on a sphere, right? But if you put something here like a laser, right, and you fire that laser absolutely straight. I think I've got I do. All right, so you fire that laser straight, and we go, it doesn't want to draw it up there. Oh, yeah, okay, it doesn't matter. All right, so if you fire this absolutely straight, what's happening then, and it's perfectly level, is as it comes out here further and further and further, the laser beam with respect to the Earth is getting higher and higher and higher and higher, right? So what's actually happening is when the laser beam is going higher and higher and higher and above the Earth, even though it was perfectly level here, even if it was only 1 inch above the ground, the Earth, by the demand of its design, is falling away at that 8 inches per mile squared, which means that it is also going into a less and less and less dense atmosphere, right? What does it take for light to refract downwards towards the Earth? It takes a medium change, not into a lighter medium, but into a more dense medium that will draw that laser beam down, correct? So how can that ever happen if the beam from the get-go, right, is going into less and less and less dense properties? How could it possibly ever go around the Earth?
Yeah,
right?
It's just another one you caught them on just another one of their contradictions that doesn't fit the science of refraction or what their crazy claims, the different claims that they come around with. That they reinventing themselves is just like the stuff they believe is just fiction, like the stuff they believe. So they have to make things up. Otherwise, what are they going to do? Do real experiments and find out there's not there?
They believe basically that the laser works like the line tool there on your globe Earth. So, Bob, if you grab that ruler tool and just drag it across the Earth the way it conforms to the sphere, that's how they think lasers work.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
It doesn't go out into space or anything. And I don't know. Another question I have for people, and maybe this is just my own stupid question, but I'd be interested to hear what Taboo thinks or Bob, what you think. I mean, is it proven to you that light would travel forever in a vacuum anyway?
Absolutely not. And I can give you a simple thought experiment or even an actual experiment that will prove that to be absolutely untrue.
Thank you. Yeah, I would think the same thing. I mean,
okay.
And I read another thing that said that if you shoot a laser into the sky, that your laser is traveling at light speed all throughout the universe forever.
Yeah. Right. Silliness. So the way that that's disproven, and I don't know, I may have told you this before, but the simple way to do this is get a box, right? Make a box and line the inside of that box with mirrors, right? All over the place mirrors. And maybe have a couple of little peepholes in there where you can put a camera in, right? And then have another hole where you can fire a laser into that box, right? Well, when you do that and you turn the laser on, the laser light itself is going to bounce all over the flipping place, right? It's just going to keep bouncing and bouncing and bouncing, and you'll be able to look around and you'll see all these different angles of the laser light, right? Depending on your perspective of it. But what then happens if you turn off the laser? And not even a microsecond later, the light completely dissipates. Why doesn't it continue to keep bouncing around until it reaches those distances such as they would be commensurate with the inverse square law of light, where they would fade off enough that there would be at least some sort of a noticeable dampening effect? There isn't, and there won't be, because it simply does not propagate, nor that way at all, nor is it actually propagating at all through physical space. This is where you get back into the argument of what light actually is a rate of induction into the luminiferous ether, right? And this, this also takes care of the answer of well, how can light possibly go through a fish tank or water or a change in medium where it would have to necessarily slow down, right? And does necessarily slow down, right? And then come out of that medium and speed back up. Well, we know that's a violation of the law of conservation of energy, right? Cannot happen. But if it's a rate of induction, the only thing that's changing at that point is as it's going through the tank of water or whatever, that rate of induction is slowed because there is other material that is manifest within the ether at that point. So yeah, there's your easy answer. There's no way that it propagates forever. It just doesn't.
No, and the whole idea of these lights from stars that they say, oh, these stars could have burned out forever ago, and the light would still be traveling and we would still see it for thousands and thousands of years. Some of these galaxies could have exploded or been gone for eons, and we would still see their light. Is just ridiculous.
Yeah, the inverse square law is another one on that one that proves that that's not the case. And the other thing I would add is the radio telescopes and some astronomy papers that I found, radio astronomy. I was looking into how they work, and they talk about acoustic signals coming from stars, actual sounds, and how that's completely impossible if the sounds, they get pulsars actually make sounds.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And how is that traveling?
But here's my question on that, Bob, real quick. So if you disprove this, then you would disprove the entire idea of infinite space and these crazy distances. If you could prove that lights don't travel in a vacuum forever, right? Wouldn't that just completely destroy and yeah? So.
Well, even the mainstream admits that to some degree, right, with the inverse square law of light, and they're saying that. But of course, as we know, there's a big problem with that because, as Ben has done, you have done, I have done, when you back calculate that either 1 lumen, 1 lux, or 0.1 lux all the way back to the moon, you've got 14 quadrillion lumens of light. So it is nonsense.
But if you shoot a laser, let's say I just shoot it off in a parallel thing across as far as I can. Eventually, that light doesn't propagate anymore. So, is the reason for that? They would say is because of the atmosphere, right?
They would say that, or we have a genius in chat that's goes by WY Triggered. He says, Globebusters, why do you assume the mirrors are 100% efficient? You ignore energy losses due to heat. Oh, brother. Really? And so
the mirrors he's talking about.
Yeah,
I wanted to know more details on that. Did you try to do that? Is that something we can watch, like when people put that the mirror box? Because I was under the impression, you would expect the thing to just keep going and be bouncing off the mirrors forever, right? When you turn it off.
That's
because
right.
That's what Jaron just said. But what you say is that immediately when you turn it off, it just dissipates. It's gone.
Well,
exactly.
Yeah. The thing is, when you shoot a laser across, let's say, Salton Sea at 28 miles, well, we know there is no laser that goes 28 miles, at least the lasers that we're using then. Why not? What is stopping that laser from continuing on? And if it's the atmosphere, then why won't they also understand that we can't see forever? When you're at the top of J. Tolan Media's, and somebody says, oh, well, why does the observation end? Well, it's because the light from that distant observation isn't getting that far. Why? Because the atmosphere is stopping it from getting to your eye.
Right. Well, I think the best way to answer that question is with a little diagram here. Let me type this in. Oopsie. All right, so if we look at inverse square law, Wikipedia has this. All right, so the reason it can't go on forever and ever and ever, guys, is because it's like anything else. If you have a source point of light and you have X amount of field intensity here, as that light disperses out, then at any point as you move away from it, the density or the intensity of that light must continue to drop and go lower and lower and lower and lower, right? Because it's, you're covering more and more space. And not only do you have to worry about this particular area, but what about all the different field strengths that are in between all of these? In other words, you simply cannot have an ongoing light, forever. And as that
why would we see stars as points of light? Why wouldn't they be? If that's how the light grows, right? So in just that one little distance there, now all of a sudden the light is this huge square at the end.
Because so you're looking at the point source of light. You're not looking at what's being dispersed through. Versus if you shine it through a medium, like if you guys look at a light inside of a swimming pool, the water itself will diffuse that light, right? And you're able to see it. But in space, supposedly, or even in a low density area of atmosphere, right? The only thing you're going to see is the point source itself, looking right down the barrel of it. It's kind of like when you take a laser and you turn it on. If you point it at your eye, you're going to see it. But if you turn it sideways and you shine it across you, other than hitting a few dust particulates in the air, you're not going to see the beam going across in front of you, right?
Right.
So that's why. And so, the point I was going to make earlier is this guy, W.Y. Triggered, is saying, oh, you're assuming that, what about the efficiency of the mirrors? Well, what about the efficiency of space, right? It's like, give me a break. You're trying to say that this light beam can go on forever and ever and ever, and it simply cannot. And even your mainstream model right here, inverse square law, states that it must attenuate. There is no doubt about it, not only from forward distance, but from diffusion or what's the laser problem we had? Divergence, beam divergence, right? In other words, you got the light going all these different directions and you have it going out over miles and miles and miles, and pretty soon there's just not enough energy to fill in all the gaps, if you will.
Right.
So, light cannot propagate forever and ever and ever. And the fact that they have...
Yeah, I think... Sorry, I was trying to say something. I had myself muted, but...
Okay.
Bob doesn't hear me. But yeah, back in the diagram, I just wanted to point out on what Gerald is saying, that it was interesting here for everybody that, yeah, of course, one square there, close to the source of the light, captures the same beams that, or I guess there's no actual beams, but the same intensity of light that's you can count as whatever it has, 3, 6, 9. Yeah, those 9 intensity then is using, after the second distance there, it's using 4 of those squares, and then it's using 9 of those squares, right, for the same 9. Right, so that's the thing that's going on, but. And Jaron said, so how do you see the stars? So that's a good point. So what is it that we see? So it has to be way closer. It has to be something else. They do have sound. So that's the one thing that's so odd, that you have the optical astronomy that's making these claims about light years and distances of light years. But how do you get these acoustic sounds on the radio telescopes from these pulsars that are 13 billion light years away?
Well, the acoustic sounds that's nothing more than an interpolation. It's kind of like an AM. Look at it this way. I don't know if anybody knows how an AM broadcast signal works, but you have an RF wave, right? That is, let's just say it's oscillating back and forth at 1 megahertz or 1 million cycles per second. Well, obviously we can't hear that, right? But if we modulate the envelope or the outside of the output of that with an audio signal, we modulate that with a 60 hertz tone. You will be able to see that in the envelope, and then we just simply remove the RF component out of it, and we can hear that because that brings it down into it. So that's essentially what they're doing when they look out into the cosmos, right? They're not hearing anything, like it's perturbing anything coming to us. They're they're demodulating it, if you will.
Yeah, this is what's weird because they're calling these are not optical, they're not light signals, and in the astronomical literature, maybe at some point I can do a little bit more digging and present something on this, but they are actually using the word acoustic, and acoustic is sound, but I don't know why they do it. What was it? Why they do that exactly? But you see, if it is a modulation, like you say, yes, it's kind of like what we do so we can hear, elephant sounds. Some elephant sounds that they make are so low we cannot catch up, but we just put the frequency up and modulate it, and we get to that point where it's hearable. Like this is what you say, right? So yeah. I don't know exactly what it is. I think there's something very strange about radio astronomy. And that there's a lot to unpack there, but I don't know the answer, but it's just intriguing because of course of sonoluminescence.
Yep. So there you have it.
I just wanted to make one point about the inverse square law and the stars, and combine that with Olberg's paradox, and this idea that the whole the entire sky should be lit up with these distant stars. If they're all dissipating by the inverse square law, you shouldn't absolutely see any stars whatsoever. It should be just this like faint glow in the sky at night.
Yeah, at those distances, they could never make it that far. That is the very thing that tells us, Ben, that the stars are close and local. There it is.
And how light when I guess the sun hitting so what Ben just described is kind of like the cosmos should look like the sky during the day, more or less, right?
I think so. Absolutely, it should. Bob, if you click on that article, I just was looking at an article in my alerts today, but it's pretty funny. If you read the first paragraph, I wonder if this is just a spelling error or something. Go ahead and hit I accept or whatever. But read right where it starts, an asteroid. It says, an asteroid barreling through space 35 times faster than the Concorde aircraft will approach our plane tomorrow.
Oh, Freudian slip there. That's hilarious.
Saw that happen. Anyway, sorry, go off subject like I always do.
Yep, no worries. Well, we're going to see stuff like that all the time. So what do you do, right? Okay.
Enjoy it. Enjoy it. It's fun.
Yes. All right. So let's see. Here's another one. Well, let's see. Do I want to go to that one yet? This was hilarious. Did you see this one?
Yeah, I think we talked about it on the. Was it on the lounge, Rodrigo? I don't remember, or maybe it was on Globebuster-ish. One or the other. It's so stupid in the video with it. Literally dragging space-time around with it.
Yeah,
I literally lost brain cells reading that.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Have caught a star literally dragging space-time around with it. Again, that's so unbelievable. And speaking of that, Darren, let's take a slight detour from that. I heard you on Raw on Monday night, and I was really pleased to hear this, because we've kind of talked about this a few times, but in reference to Einstein's bendy space-time model of gravity, right?
Right.
You got it.
It makes sense to you because I saw a couple people commented that they thought I didn't understand it or something.
Oh no, it makes perfect sense, and I'm 100% on board with that. You're right. They are determining a direction of down where, in fact, that bent space-time would have to be in every direction, right? Not just one. Where is it going to bend it? It's going to bend it all around it, and then at that point, where does the object fall? Right. So no, you were dead on the money. You should explain that to everybody on this show again. Just your revelation on it.
Well, unless there's a basement to the universe, right? I mean, if there's a basement to the universe, then I can see that. But no, just talking about space-time with a guy that was at a Super Bowl party. He's like trying to explain space-time because I basically made a comment about gravity, and I said, well, and they said, oh, you don't even believe that things attract other things. I'm like, that's not even what the current science is. The current science is that the bending of space-time, and then there's this guy that has a physics, I don't want to say physics background. He took physics classes, I guess, same as Rodrigo probably. But he's like, oh no, actually he's right that it's the bending of space-time. And I said, well, explain that to me. I don't understand it at all. And he's like, well, you see, the Earth sits in the fabric of space-time and it bends it down. And then I said, well, there is no down in space. And everyone kind of pulled a ooh, and he was kind of taken aback, and he's like, well, yeah, but it's not. Well, it is. And then he's like, never mind. It's very highly detailed. And so driving home, I had a 2-hour and 15-minute drive, and all I was thinking about is all these diagrams that we get, right, where they basically lay this fabric of space-time and they sit a ball in it. And the fact that the ball sits down and then pushes down into the trampoline or into the fabric of space-time tells me that there would have to be a down in space. You can't just have it. So I'm like, well, we're about it bending up. How do things know which direction to fall? They like basically give space the idea of a fabric of space-time as if it's a one-dimensional plane. I mean,
it's the actual surface of that balloon, I guess, somehow, but it goes both sides. It's such nonsense. It's just incredible.
Right, exactly. I mean, if you think about it that way, the blowing up of the balloon, right, putting the dots on it, all their things, when you really start thinking about it, you're like, well, I could see, yeah, you blow up the balloon and all the dots move away from each other, but what about all the empty space inside the balloon? What's going on there? Like, we only live on the outside, like we only live on the fabric of space-time that is a one single sheet of paper that the planet sits in and causes a dent in. And yeah, I was showing all images.
Yeah, that's the balloon universe. There's the beer universe, and that would be, you are in the surface of the bubbles. That's it. Right. Or then there's the other one that Ito was talking about, the Nobel Prize that is in the coffee, right? It's like the coffee with the milk.
Yeah, why are we on the surface of the balloon? That's stupid.
Right. It's just. I think it's just the stories that they hypnotize people with.
Right. Or, we were laughing at the video, remember, Rodrigo, where we were playing the video of the lady teaching the child and his mom about how the fabric of space-time works, and they have to describe it as something. And and then you say, oh, well, why doesn't the ball stop spinning and go into the earth, or go into the sun like we see when you do it? And they say, oh, well, because the fabric of space-time has no friction, right? Well, how can it have no friction, but it's able to be bent by massive objects? All of it doesn't make sense. It all falls apart. And
it's just crazy. And of course, in the heliocentric model, the fact that sometimes the planets, Jupiter supposedly has enormous mass, and when it has a conjunction, it's closer to some other planets, it should literally pull them off their orbits. I mean, things should be moving around. No way you could get these stable orbits that they were claiming, even with their model.
No, I certainly don't think so. Or the rings of Saturn or everything. I mean, it's just, it all falls apart for me, and it's just hilarious. The more I hear it, the more I realize how much nonsense it is, and how I ever believed it. It was just because it was told to me in a very authoritative fashion, right? Yep. The fabric of space-time, and this has been figured out. And then when you start looking at these answers around it, or the mathematics involved, it's just them covering their butts one way or another. And it couldn't do this, and the gravity didn't work anymore because all their distant galaxies wouldn't make any sense if you just use gravity, so they had to change gravity. Have to change it to the fabric of space-time. Have to change it to math equations. Why? Because there's a lot of people who don't understand the high detailed math, and it's very easy to fool anybody. You can convince anybody of anything with math. We've heard physicists say they could, make an equation that says that an elephant can hang by a blade of grass over a cliff. We know that that's not true. But so just so somebody can make a mathematical equation that shows that it is true doesn't make it a fact.
Yep. Okay, guys. Apparently that guy I don't know if it was him that dropped this, but Zach brought this to my attention, and here's our answer. Right? This is great. Astrophysicist answers: if you had a light in a room which was entirely sealed with mirrors, then switch the light off, would the room stay lit? Would the light just keep reflecting off mirrors? Would it slow down, perhaps to the point where it is no longer visible? Here we go. Here's the answer. The light source produces a certain number of photons, and if the mirrors in this room are perfect, there is no way for them to be absorbed. In that sense, the room would stay lit. Yeah, right. What about... all right, I'm not even going to go. Let's just keep reading. Of course, you would have to be very clever in how you checked in on your room, because any other normal way of looking at the photons, i.e. with your eye, and of course they are asserting that light is actually particles, which again is nonsense. because, you know, what I said earlier, and Austin has said many times about, pass it through a different medium, and then how do you speed it back up to the always 186,282 miles per second required light of speed without violating the conservation of energy, right? Anyway, okay, so because any normal way of looking at the photons, i.e. with your eye, will absorb some of the photons, truly perfect mirrors not only will not absorb photons, they will scatter them elastically, i.e. with no loss of energy. Of course, there is no example of that. This is highly theoretical. This is a thought process which has absolutely zero basis in actual reality. This is absolutely dreaming, but you know what? Because Alan Chodos, PhD, said it, well, it's got to be true. Let's continue on. In that case, the photons will retain the same wavelength, and if they were in the visible spectrum initially, they will remain there. However, if we imagine mirrors that scatter the photons but at the same time absorb some of the photons' energy, these would be inelastic collisions. Then the photon's wavelength becomes longer with each scattering. Okay, so now we have to be careful to make sure that they bounce and they don't interfere with each other, because you know what happens when two particles hit each other? They'll cause an interference pattern. Of course, that's a loss of energy. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, this is the kind of bullshit that, you know, people will talk about. This is a pure thought experiment with no basis in reality, full of conditions. You know, oh my God, you can't have them hit anything. And perfect mirrors. You know, this is kind of like that. Remember the Sunday Mass show when I was talking about the guy was saying, yeah, let's take all these massless particles and we'll put them inside of this box, right? And all of a sudden they'll have mass, right? and idiots out there will actually believe this, right? There is nothing in this that purports any mode of reality, period. This is a pure thought experiment, pure supposition with zero evidence to back it up. So, you know, Guy, whatever your name is, if this is your idea of proof, what a joke.
And have people try to do anything like this bouncing? Because I know of like nanomaterials. Some people talk about this, and like these are materials that are able to reflect the light into themselves and then reflect light again into some way that, you know, may hide the material. So some people talk about that, you know, and that is reflecting light in a way that hides what's in front of you. But you know, that experiment, do you have anybody trying to do this, to reflect the laser and see if it, in a way that you can turn it off and it will still keep going?
Yeah, well, no, nobody can even do that. Even this theoretical thought experiment, and the guy's crowing, oh, see, I was right, wasn't I? No, you weren't right. Oh my God, these people are so blind and dumb. It just defies the imagination. But this is a glober for you guys. Pay close attention to this WY triggered guy in the chat, guy. And this is indoctrination at its best. Absolutely unbelievable. Even this article itself says that unless everything's perfect and somehow you can manage to keep them from interfering with each other, it is clear this is nothing more than a thought experiment with no basis in reality whatsoever. But,
and then I don't know if you saw Ben posted the Olbers paradox. I was just looking at, and that's exactly what Rodrigo was just talking about earlier. What shouldn't the night sky be completely white? Because as we look into the distance and more stars fill in, it should just be nothing but, if all these stars, lights traveling through the vacuum. It's crazy. So, Bob, if somebody shined a laser in space, let's say, I don't know, an astronaut on the supposed ISS on a spacewalk were to shine a laser, would that travel through the vacuum?
Well, theoretically, yeah, light will absolutely propagate through the vacuum. And of course, you're looking at it, you know, in the conventional, you know, mode that light is traveling as a wave. But, you know, as Theoria has said many times, you know, a wave is not what something is, it's what something does. But yes, it will still induce it. It will still cause an induction into the ether. So technically, yeah, you could look at it that way. Of course, it will propagate across a vacuum, no matter how you want to define that propagation.
The vacuum is nothing. The vacuum doesn't take away the ether. That's
no. The ether, you cannot take away the ether.
So shouldn't a supposed ISS astronaut in a spacewalk be able to shine a laser at the moon and we see it actually hit the moon?
Theoretically.
Yeah, funny. All right, thank you.
So, oh boy. All right.
So
So,
it's all about the source. Once the source of the light is gone, it's totally gone. It doesn't continue to just move on. Like this whole story that Jaron is talking about, like they tell all the time that a star may die, but you only see its death, many years later, whatever. It's all BS. So as soon as the source is gone, it just stops propagating, and that's the end of it.
yeah. But again,
It is a great production, absolutely. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But they're trying to say that light is particles, and it just simply cannot be. That is such a ridiculous assertion. So, but yeah, okay. So I'm looking at this Olbers paradox.
Gaseous particles. Yeah.
Yeah,
It
well-
says there more distant stars are revealed in this animation depicting an infinite, homogeneous, and static universe. They fill the gaps between closer stars. Olbers paradox argues that the night sky is I can't see the bottom because my little thing's in the way. Is dark. At least one of these three assumptions about the nature of the universe must be false. Right. So which one is false? That it's infinite, that it's homogeneous, or that it's static? Because if all those three things are true, which they claim that they are, then the night sky should look like the day.
Yeah, I get that. Especially if they're saying that this light can never, ever, ever dissipate. Well, I think the fact that we look up and we don't see this is proof, in and of itself that something's wrong here, right? So yeah,
That's what he's saying.
yeah, exactly, and I agree with that. There's a big problem with this.
Agreed. Well, all right. Anyway.
All right, cool. Anyway, and again, guys, this is the kind of nonsense, this kind of stuff. It's so ridiculous, such a thought experiment, so theoretical, no proof whatsoever. And, this actually has a degree of logic to it. If you have all these millions and trillions and zillions and billions of points of light and they never dissipate, then you're right. The sky should be absolutely, full of point source lights, and it should be a solid sheet.
And if light's a particle, then you should fly the laser into a container and fill it up with light particles.
Yeah, fill it up with photons. Right.
Photon glass, yeah.
Well, and not only that, it would demand that, radio waves would also be photons, right?
Right.
They don't really talk about those much. QE one time did send me something that said that, which is it's preposterous. It is not emanating particles. Light is not a particle. RF is not a particle. Electromagnetic waves are not particles. It's just silly, but this is where they have to go to push this Einsteinian model.
Right, they'll go even farther than that to try to basically explain, for example, the phenomena of magnetism. They'll say virtual photons.
Yeah, right. Yep. Yeah, Austin, I don't know. I don't know if you saw this or not, but if not, you'll have to check out the Sunday Mass presentation that I did. It was so hilarious. We have these PhD engineers that are talking about filling up a box with massless particles. And, in doing so, they bounce around these massless particles and then they create a mass, right? I mean, the whole thing is absolute double speak from the get-go. And, I started it with the premise of saying, look, physicists don't even have a clear definition of what mass is, right? Well, the best way to define mass here on Earth, because there is nowhere else that can certainly be proven, unless you want to buy the cartoons on the space shuttle, here on Earth, mass is essentially weight, and the SI unit is kilograms, right? Other than that, any other definition, as far as I'm concerned, is out the window and ridiculous, right? So, I don't know. They are so full of doublespeak. And then there are people that actually pretend that this stuff goes on. And one of the things also, Austin, that came out of this lecture on the Sunday Mass thing was we discovered, how the Flat Earth Society, their model of gravity is, well, what's happening is the disk is accelerating upwards at 9.8 meters per second squared, right? Do you know where that argument actually came from?
I do not.
Albert Einstein.
Adds up.
Absolutely. And what's funny is he made the argument and he said, but the only contingency is it has to be on a flat plane, right? And it's like I'm like, I can't believe this. They give us crap, and it was actually Einstein that came up with this model. And it's mainstream physics. These PhD doctorates on, what was it, PBS, Jaron, or something, whatever I was showing these clips from. They're the ones that are telling the story and absolutely attributing it to Einstein. Unbelievable.
It was just so void of common sense and like logical deduction. It makes no sense whatsoever. What? Like all observable phenomena shows that gravity is negligible.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy to do backflips to try to explain what the gravity is, and it's unnecessary.
Yeah, it is a. I've said this. Oh, go ahead, Jared.
No, I was just saying that's their biggest problem. I mean, Austin nailed it. That gravity is so needed because it explains everything, and from how the Earth is a sphere, how there's all these spheres. They need gravity so bad, and even though it keeps striking out, they have to hold on to it no matter what. So they'll adjust it, they'll change it, they'll write new equations for it, they'll describe it differently, and that's why they get so much confusion. Where even Neil deGrasse like, well, we don't know what it is. We don't.
Exactly.
Because they've now at this point danced around it, but they have to keep it. So, as I've described before, usually if a scientific theory doesn't match observations, you're supposed to drop it. But when they need it, it doesn't match observations, so they just change it. And Einstein was the one who said, if it doesn't match the theory, change the facts.
Right. And beyond that, here's the problem. Another problem with gravity is when they there is the downward acceleration. I think we're all on the same page there, but it is a very, very minute bias, right, that gives us our up from down. And that's about where it ends, right? But the thing is we can't supposedly measure this gravitational field or field of gravitons, whatever, right? Because, and the way that gravity is described is not by any field strength measurement, but simply by a characteristic of, well, it makes things fall at 9.8 meters per second squared. Well, that's all fine and dandy. But you know what? In electromagnetism, in electrostatic fields, we can actually assign a psi unit to them that we can actually measure, right? We can measure microteslas for magnetic field. We can measure, KeV for electrostatic volts or electrostatic forces. But the only thing you don't have a field of measurement for gravity. You simply define it by its characteristic. Well, that's exactly why. It takes an event from a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away of two neutrons stars colliding 450 million light years away to produce a quote unquote gravitational wave that reaches us. And somehow their little LIGO detectors can chirp on that. But when the moon passes over and lifts up thousands and trillions of tons of water, they cannot detect that field. Where is that field? There's no field there. There's nothing that they can actually tangibly measure. It's absurd, right? It's a bias. It is a simple determination that gives us up from down, and that is where it ends.
Right. And the bias comes from the absolute frame of reference. Right. Well, that's how I see it. Maybe like that. Tesla said that the ether kind of acts as a constant state of compression, so that creates the difference in up and down. Right. There's a frame of reference or a universal background, so it's just like inherently there. And so if the gravity is just an effect that's basically negligible.
Yeah. Very negligible. And it certainly does not have the power to go whipping ISSs or planets around suns or anything like that. It just doesn't happen. Gravitational force, so to speak, is 10 to the 38th, times weaker than a comparable electrostatic type force, right? That's absurd. 10 to the 38th? Give me a break, dude, man.
Clown world, dude.
Yeah, completely. And they're saying that it's whipping around, but when you go to deep space, then it can whip around, whatever the mass of the Earth is supposedly being, how many gajillion, kilograms it is. Oh yeah, it can handle that, no problem. It can handle Halley's Comet, going out, 75 years and coming back and then somehow missing the sun every single time. It's just, oh my God, people have no brains left. They really don't. It's pathetic. So anyway, all right. So we've harped on that enough. Last thing I want to cover before we call it a show is I was just thinking about today, honestly, about the Eratosthenes experiment, right? And I was thinking to myself, there's so many different versions. I'm not exactly sure which one is accurate. Some of the experiments say that there were 2 sticks that were used. Some that were saying that, well, there's a well and a stick. And then, others say, well, there's a couple of wells. Well, I found this one, and basically it's saying that the well, where is it? Is close to Syene. Okay, where is that? All right. And it's saying that on that day, here it is. Okay. Eratosthenes had heard from travelers about a well in Syene, now Aswan, Egypt, by the way, which is about 24 point something degrees north latitude, right? Okay. So if the sun, first of all, travels between 23.5 north and south, well, then we're a little bit off, by half a degree or so. And the first question I was asked is, how could the light actually hit the bottom of the well from the sun? But I'm not going to quibble over a half a degree, all right? Maybe it will, whatever. So it says, Eratosthenes had heard from travelers about a well in Syene, now Aswan, Egypt, with an interesting property. At noon on the summer solstice, which occurs about June 21st every year, the sun illuminated the entire bottom of this well without casting any shadows, indicating that the sun was directly overhead. Eratosthenes then measured the angle of a shadow cast by a stick at noon on the summer solstice in Alexandria, which is several degrees further north, and found it made an angle of about 7.2 degrees, or about 1/50th of a complete circle. So, and then from this, of course, he was supposedly able to determine the circumference of the Earth, or the radius of the Earth, yada, 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 right? So I was thinking to myself, well, how did he know at that time about the Earth coordinate system, right? Where was that at? So I looked it up, and the geographic coordinate system, it says here, was the invention of the geographic coordinate system is generally accredited to Eratosthenes of Cyrene, right? It's like, oh, isn't that interesting, right? So it not only did he make this experiment, but he is also the same one that invented this geographic coordinate system, all without ever actually knowing at the time that the Earth is a ball. Isn't that amazing, you guys? It
just
just
how stupid that story is. That's something everybody talks about, travelers, about how much sunlight hits the bottom of a well, and he just knew that. I mean, 600 miles away. Such nonsense.
It is.
Yeah. There's a bunch of things on that piece that caught my eye. First, there's a characteristic that's typical of anybody who's telling the story that I could find, which is no references to actual manuscripts describing what they're saying. Then there's this other thing, which is most Greeks believe this and that. That is not the case at all. If you just you start reading the so-called Greeks yourself, from different parts, and they don't see themselves as Greeks anyway, united in any way, shape, or form. If you read Plato's Timaeus, for example, the cosmologies you see there are different. There's different kinds of cosmologies that are presented. Actually, what you see is that there's many different cosmologies. Philo of Alexandria is another one. He actually played with these ideas. He said that you could invent any number of cosmologies and nobody would ever be able to prove any of them were actually true. But not only that, but also Hesiod, who's a poet from 7th century BC, 8th century BC, the time of Homer. His cosmogony, he talks about the laws of the planes. He talks about the different generations being covered by Earth, and he talks about different things, but he doesn't talk about balls flying, anything like that, spinning ball Earth, or Earth being a ball. He talks about the laws of the planes, and I've described this. I quoted the actual text, which is out there for people to see. So, it's very strange, the story of Eratosthenes, these statements that most Greeks believe something like this or that was around, and it all agree with this, not corroborated in the literature itself. So, very sketchy, and the whole story of Eratosthenes in general.
Exactly. And how had Eratosthenes actually navigated to Antarctica to know these distances to apply this scale to, right? I mean, how did he do that?
Absolutely not.
It's
also, if you remember the piece from the New Yorker, that guy, he claims that Aristotle knew about the positions of the stars or something or other, as if he had traveled to the southern hemisphere, and he hadn't. So it's a lie. And it's just there's so many of these things that get tossed at us. But yeah, go on. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, no. I mean, great points, but that's all I'm saying. I was just thinking about that. And of course, as we've made the point several times before, Eratosthenes never took into account refraction. And, if it's directly ahead, okay, yeah, granted, there's not going to be a whole lot of refraction, especially if there's only like a degree difference, lighting the bottom of that well. But as we know full well, even if the second sight, is 7 degrees or whatever, 7.5 degrees, whatever it said, to the north further, that means that the sunlight is going to be coming in at a refracted angle. It has to be, right? The Globers are all about this refraction, right? Why don't they ever apply it to this? It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. And I think that's probably all I had was, just stuff like that. I had a couple other things from Voyager, but we'll cover those, I think, next week. Because
have you seen some of the push in propaganda they had with the return of the astronaut woman and the Italian guy, and how they can't come out of this prop that's been burnt from the outside, totally charred, probably in the studio, whatever. And then they're all really happy. They have no effects. They start talking right away. Have you seen all this stuff?
Right. For years.
No, yeah, but you've seen the stuff that is just out this week. Of course they've been doing that for years, but they really pushing, these two actors and this woman as well. And I think it's sort of disingenuous because they're trying to, of course, make themselves not criticizable because they're supposedly, emphasizing the achievements of women, but they're using women, and it's pretty bad when you see how they do it and the way they do it. But yeah, I mean, Louisa here, for instance, had a problem, had to throw up because she's pregnant, of course. But when you bring too much blood to your face, she had things happening in her neck a little bit, blood vessels popping up and things like that, in her eyes as well, and that's just from her body pressure. And these guys are decelerating from 20 times or more the speed of sound, 17,500 miles an hour, whatever that is, to zero really quickly, and they feel nothing, and they come out swinging and laughing and so on. It's just incredible that people cannot notice the problems with this acceleration and the claims of the speeds and so on, and the effects on the body. Just mind-boggling for me.
Yep, I agree totally. So, all right. Well, anyway, guys, hopefully you got a little bit more gravy out of that. And my big thing was the whole that I really wanted, out there was the whole Jay Tolan thing about why is it that, we're not using these clouds as reference points, to completely debunk this whole, nonsense notion that we have to take into account the 8,000 mile diameter of the Earth to be able to distinguish it from another point on the Earth. That is absolutely absurd. And this, of course, is Neil deGrasse Tyson's, thing too. Oh, well, the beach ball. Look how big this beach ball is. It doesn't matter. We don't see the rest of the beach ball, but we can certainly see a major change in land elevation from one point to another. And the fact is, we don't. What we do see is we see the horizon rising, and as we all know, that it's not that the land is going up. It's not because it's concave. It's because this is simple, properties of optics and the way perspective works. Simple as that. But one thing it doesn't ever do is go the other way, unless you're soundly, right? So there you have it. So I think we will call that a show, and I'll go around one last time, and we'll see what everybody's doing this week. And then I want to remind everybody, I think Crow is coming on. Crow and Jason are going to be coming on. Mods, if you have that link, if you want to spam it in there, that would be great. Go over there, show them some love. They're starting their new podcast together on YouTube, so I told them I would give him a shout out. So if we can throw a link in the chat, that would be great. Other than that, Rodrigo, let's go ahead and start with you. What do you got coming up this upcoming week?
Just preparing a presentation from my engineer. The contact. Sorry. He's an engineer who sent me a whole study. It's like 20 pages long on how you cannot detect curvature again. Another one, preponderance of evidence type of thing. And I'm going to bring that out, and then hopefully talking to Jaron, I don't know if this Thursday or next Thursday, about the space crack, and then making that out, putting that out, and start working on the next one. And moving on and seeing what happens. I don't want to be a NASA person. I don't want to make promises on things I cannot deliver because so much time, but there's only so much time. And we have a situation here to take care of. With the baby, everything coming up, there's lots going on. And just keep an eye on the plane. So.
All right. Beautiful. Okay. Well, yeah, that's going to be here, and then you're never going to have any time when the baby comes. That is one of the most time-intensive things ever, is when you have a brand new newborn in the house. So I know all about that. I've done it with 3. So.
Oh, wow.
All right. And Ben really knows about it, right? So let's go up with Ben. Ben, you're up next. What do you got coming up, buddy?
Well, my life was disrupted quite a few times in the last month or so, but things seem to be stabilizing for me. So I'm going to get back on the Globebusters Pro thing. I apologize to any of the professionals who've contacted us and that I haven't followed up with, but I've really been going through some problems. But anyway, we do have an F-16 pilot that wants to talk about the flat Earth, but can't get his voice out there. So there's a little issue that we want to get through. There's some other great people that have contacted us. So I hope we can start doing some more of those interviews, and maybe even Jaron and Rodrigo maybe would also be interested in doing some of these interviews. It'd be maybe even a team effort. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
So that's what I'm hoping to do next. And I thought it was a great show, guys. Thank you.
All right, Ben. Terrific. And yeah, I, now that my life has gotten a little less chaotic with my, migrations and being sick and all that stuff over with, I think I can get to some of these other interviews as well. And I apologize also to the people out there that have been kind of waiting for that, but we will get to that. It just seems like there's so many things, that take up your time, and it's never ending. It just keeps going. So what do you do? So, all right. So up next, Austin, what do you got coming up? I know you're doing a lot of Discord, stuff like that, and your shows every night have been fabulous. You've really gotten onto some great topics, and I honestly could not do what you do and sit there and just carry on a lecture for a couple hours like that, even though I seem to do that on Globebusters anyway. But I mean, I really admire you and Jaron and all the guys that can do that solo, because I'm not sure if I can or not.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I can just talk away, bro. I think we all know that, but I'll just be going live every weeknight this week, and then I'm debating MC Tune from Tune Squad Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Central. So that'll be a blast, and that's about it. So I'll probably have that streaming on my my channel Tuesday night, and then I'll just go live every weeknight this week.
Okay, that sounds good. The only advice I can offer on that is, in watching him and the way he operates, is he will try and suck you into the argument using ball earth physics, ball earth logic, and just remember, we have something that's quite different, and it's not always going to conform to his silly nonsense, and he will bring out his equations and just say, look, that's not necessarily applicable on what we're looking at. So he's a slippery one, so just be careful.
It's all of his arguments derive from presuppositions, so that's not going to work. So he honestly doesn't have much of a chance. But yeah, appreciate the advice.
When's that going to happen, Austin?
Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Central.
8 p.m. Central. Okay.
Yep. Okay. And let's see. Was that, and Ben, was that all that you had to say? Was just that because I kind of feel like I had a brain cramp here, and there was more to that, or maybe not.
No, I'm good.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that. All right, cool. Well, then, last but not least, then, Jaron, what do you got coming up over the next week?
No, just nothing really much. Just thank everybody for watching, and always thank you to those in the chat and all the mods as usual. We've got Raw with David Weiss. I'm sure we'll be talking about Ruth and some other topics. That's tomorrow at TFR, 6 p.m. Pacific. So definitely tune in for that. And you can find that, like I said, on TFR, on my other Jeranism Raw YouTube channel, and on DLive. And then we've got another lounge coming up on Friday. And I'm pretty sure we'll do a presentation on Thursday. I just don't know who it'll be yet. Probably Travis or maybe Rodrigo. So I'll let everybody know probably tomorrow when I find out when. So just keep an eye on my channel. You never know what's coming. And I do have a video releasing a little bit, but it's just I just have a mirror of David Weiss's interview, and it includes the other interview that'll be uploaded shortly after the show. So that's about it. And then I'm off to watch some wrestling.
All right. Oh, cool. Yeah. And happy belated birthday for that present.
Yeah, thank you. No, it's just, my sister got me, so she
Very
remembers
cool.
me as a child. That's how I grew up. My dad would always make me watch wrestling, so that
All
was
right.
kind of when I was a kid.
Yeah, sounds like torture. All right.
Oh,
No wrestling fans, man, they're such good people. All right, we'll have to see.
Bob, there's one last thing I wanted to say.
Okay.
And I got really, I don't know, I was really offended. You used the word, you said horse manure. You said that what they were saying is horse manure. And, you know, I like to say horse manure is good for the land. It's fertilizer. That's wrong. You're being too nice.
Okay.
You shouldn't say that what they're saying is horse manure. That's
Okay.
my statement for the end. It should be something like sulfuric acid or something that really, you know, horse manure. Horses are good. Manure is good. No.
All right.
So bullshit is good.
It is.
Okay.
In a way. Yeah,
Boy.
because it's fuel. It is. Well, no, it is. If you look at people use it for different reasons, it's one of the very good fertilizers. Well, I mean, there's things that are much worse, and they're kind of what they're saying is much worse than that. Is space crack. It's,
I don't know, Rodrigo. That sounded like one of those Glober inversions to me. I don't know.
No, metaphorically, of course, manure is pretty bad. Of course, it is. But there's
Yeah.
things that are way worse, and manure has its functions. I tried to do a joke.
Okay, no worries. All right, cool. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us. As I said, go over and join Crow and Jason. They're coming up next, and the mods have spammed the link in there. So we will see you all next week. Until then, be good to each other. Don't lie to each other. Open your mind because there's truth inside. Peace out, everybody.
Peace.